Hello, dear listener, whoever you may be. I'm imagining to begin with that most of the people listening to this will be close friends or bitter enemies of mine, and maybe my mum. But whoever you are, thanks for listening. So, what am I doing? Well, this is an attempt at a podcast. Doing a podcast of my own is something that's kind of been stewing with me for a while. For the past few years, podcasts have kind of been the main way I consume things like comedy, movie and TV critique and discussion, self-help kind of topics, education on things like nutrition and exercise, meditation, all that kind of lovely stuff. Also, political podcasts, random bits of history, paranormal stories, weird scientific developments, and lots of other topics. Podcasts have become this weird staple in my life where if I'm not doing anything else, if I'm not around anybody else, I've generally always got one on in the background or in my headphones. And I know kind of starting my own one is a bit, it's cool to have a podcast these days. Loads of people have them. But I think that's probably for a good reason. Lots of people are kind of realizing that podcasts are this unfiltered and almost limitless medium, which is providing people with things that they can't really get on TV and radio or in books. And whether that's long form conversations with their favorite celebrities, or just, fellow people who are passionate about the same stuff they are, having long conversations and hearing things that they might not get to hear in their daily life or conversations with their friends because you're never kind of exposed to them. On TV and radio, the time that people have is really limited. And often kind of, with a point or agenda, a celebrity might be coming on to promote a movie and they're there just to talk about that movie for 10 minutes. But if there's an actor you like or a musician on a podcast, you might get them talking for 3 hours about their entire career and they'll really get to open up and, you'll hear things that you might not have got elsewhere. So yeah, people are using podcasts as this way to have long form conversation, and not all of them are really long form. Some of them are nice and short. But people are getting things from them they can't necessarily get anywhere else. And these days, to have a microphone that you can record into isn't an expensive thing. So it's very easy for people to have their own podcasts. Yeah, so that's kind of, I think, why more and more people are doing them. And yeah, I'm trying not to just jump on a bandwagon. This is, podcasts are genuinely a big part of my life, and it's something that I've been trying to kick myself up the arse and do for a long while. I would kind of go as far as saying that some podcasts in recent years have completely shifted my outlook on life. My opinions on things I like, on the art I like and the art that I digest, and how I speak to people, how I see myself, all kinds of things really, for better or for worse. And there's just been something really powerful and therapeutic about them for me. So doing one of my own has kind of been on the cards for a while. And my intention is to speak with friends and colleagues, acquaintances, kind of anyone really, about anything I find interesting. And for those of you who do know me, you'll know that in my own life, I do video production and photography for a living, or at least I try to. I'm also a keen DJ and self-taught music producer. Kind of thing that's started out as a hobby has now become a more sort of serious part of my life. There's many things I'm passionate about. So you can kind of expect discussions ranging from filmmaking to music to comedy, gaming, football, ghost stories, my love of whiskey. I don't know, kind of whatever feels good to talk about at any given time. Nothing's really off limits. And I know that does sound a little bit directionless, and it probably is, but I consider myself to be a bit of a directionless person sometimes. I've got opinions on many different things, and I know there's plenty of people I can speak with who can kind of help assist me through life and assist me through these opinions. And one thing that I know is an issue I have throughout my life, I've been very opinionated on things, but sometimes I do really, really struggle to articulate the points I'm trying to make. And whether this is just through lack of education or confidence, I really have no idea. I'd say I'm a pretty confident person these days. I certainly wasn't when I was a lot younger, but I often feel like I've got a lot to say, and sometimes I do struggle to formulate the point that I'm trying to make, and that can either get twisted or misunderstood by people. And if I'm having a proper sit-down conversation with someone, I find some of the best things, some of the best kind of thoughts and feelings will often come out of that. Things start to make sense a little bit more, and people can offer perspective which I wouldn't otherwise get. And yeah, so hopefully those conversations could provide something that's entertaining for you or informative or something like that. But mainly I'm kind of just doing this for me. As I say, it's therapeutic, and it encourages you. It's certainly going to encourage me to kind of formulate my opinions better about, anything. And that's kind of it, really. There's a few people I've spoke to about this, and I have got some people lined up who are going to come into my home studio and have some conversations with me. So they're lined up for early episodes, and I'm hoping that now I'm doing these kind of first 2 or 3, and once they're out there, that it's going to spur me on to do more and give me a good platform to vent some feelings and kind of showcase my own and other people's talents and thoughts and opinions. Yeah, and just kind of generally try to make sense of this weird world that we live in. I hit 30 last year, and I'm kind of in a semi-transitional part of my life. I feel like I'm finally starting to grow up, which is a weird thing to sort of say. I've kind of taken a slightly different path from what I thought I was going to be on, but that's not a negative thing. It's a positive path, and I'm pleased with the way that everything's been working out for myself. I've just had some extra time on my hands, which basically means I've not been working loads. So I thought now's the time to properly start the podcast. So I hope you like it. Forgive me in these sort of early days. Some of it might come off a bit sort of nervous, and while I'm still kind of feeling my way around it, but hopefully that calms down and everything gets a bit more relaxed as time goes on. As I'm recording this, I don't actually have a name for it yet. The only name that I did come up with was Sporadically Speaking, which is it's hard to say. You kind of want something snappier, but Sporadically Speaking, I think the reason that worked for me was because I'm not sure how often I'm going to be doing these things. My intention is to do them regularly, which I know is the complete opposite of the word sporadically, but as I say, things sometimes don't work out as you intend them to. So I thought Sporadically Speaking would be good. It also kind of explains that the topics are going to be extremely sporadic and all over the place, and it's not just going to be we're always talking about food or coffee or this, that, the other. There's going to be lots of different topics. So that's it for now. I'm going to stop rambling by myself and let you listen to the first episode. So the first episode is actually with one of my good friends. It's with Tom Cheetah. Some people listening to this might know who he is. Me and Tom met when we went to college together, and this is a kind of very film and filmmaking orientated podcast and discussion. Tom's currently working on a new short film, so we talked a bit about that, and we talked about a recent film that we went to see at the cinema, just our kind of opinions on the industry and stuff like that. This is the very first one I recorded, so as I say, it is a bit, we had a beer and we jumped right into it and just tried to give it some sort of structure, but forgive any rambling that does happen in it. It's quite long, but if you're interested in film and if you know either of us, hopefully you'll get something out of it. So yeah, let's get on with it. I've had this idea for a while now, which is to do a podcast of my own. I've been umming and ahhing about who to have on as my first guest. And I thought, well, why don't we start with somebody very special, somebody very unique. And that's a good friend of mine. He's sat here with me right now, Mr. Tom Cheetah. How are you doing, Tom?
Hello. Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, that's all right. Thanks for being my first guest. This is going to be a bit of an experiment. So everything we talk about might be a bit random. It might be a bit weird, but I've written a few things down here. I'm going to try and have some...
usual day for us.
I'm going to try and have some structure to it. But we've had a beer. We've tried to loosen ourselves up a little bit.
Indeed.
Yeah, and let's dive right into it. So basically, I'm going to start at the very beginning.
Okay.
And so for people out there who don't know you or me, most people who are hearing this probably do know at least me, because I'm the one that's going to be posting this shit everywhere.
Of course.
Anyway, so we're going to start at the beginning. For those people who don't know, Tom, why don't you give a breakdown about the day you first laid eyes on me?
First day of college, it would have been. I'd just gone to orientation. We went down to our block. I think we had our first lecture or our first introductory thing, and then we went outside. No, we were given like an orientation questionnaire to do, where we would go out and interview each other.
That's right.
And speak to each other.
Yep.
And like we all had to find out a few facts of each other. And I went around a few other people, and then we sat on a wall and we compared each other's questionnaires, and we basically did about a 12th round of Me Too. It was just sort of, that's my favourite band. Oh, Me Too. It's like, it's my favourite film. So, but Me Too. It's like, my first gig was like, but Me Too. And like, I think we did this, we just did this to an insanely, like, ridiculously comedic degree. And then we were just like, it was a bit like that thing in Step Brothers, isn't it? Like, did we just become best friends? I think we did. It's like, yeah.
So the thing I remember about it, you're right, it was the first day I actually had at college. I had my interview there late, and I was late to joining the course, but I was there on the first day, and they gave us these sheets of paper that, what you're right, there was like 3 questions for everyone, but it also had pictures of everybody on there. And I remember seeing the picture of you with your beanie on and your sort of long hair sticking out, and you were wearing a Him t-shirt. And at the time, I thought I was massively cool, and obviously the only person who knew who Him were. Obviously coming from school, I don't know. There wasn't really many people at my school who knew who they were from like the skate.
They were taken off around then. Like,
yeah. So this was like 2003.
Yeah.
And so I saw your Him t-shirt, and I was just like, oh, you like Him, do you? And it's just like, oh yeah. And I think I'm sure I made a fool of myself, because at the time, obviously this is kind of not pre-internet completely, but I didn't have the internet, so the only way I knew information about this band was stuff I read in maybe a bit of a magazine or something like that. But I didn't even really massively read Kerrang either. So, so I didn't know much about them. And I remember I had a live Him CD, and between songs I'd hear Vil talking, and he sounded British. Right. And I thought they were a British band. And I think I remember saying to you once, they're a British band, aren't they? Or something. You were like, no.
Yeah. It's like that thing when you're that age and you're like, no, Finnish, man. Like, come on, get facts right. They're Finnish. They were formed in Helsinki in 1998. And yeah, it's like you just go.
I didn't know any of that because obviously I didn't have access to the internet because I was poor. Anyway.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, so that was college days. That's where we met. And yeah, I think we bonded over love of certain type of music and then obviously a love of film as well, which is why we both chose to do the course. What is it for you? Oh, I should just say for anybody who doesn't know Tom that well, I think a lot of my close friends have met Tom, but for anybody who doesn't know Tom that well, like me, he's obviously really into films and he's since moved into filmmaking and obviously made a few things of his own and has been working in the industry like me. What can you remember that's the first thing that sort of drew you to thinking, because the thing we did at college was it was a BTEC in media production. It was like the closest thing you could get to a film course in our local area back then. Yeah. So what is it that kind of drew you to thinking, way back, that drew you to thinking, I'm going to move towards the film industry?
Well, I was always half and half for the longest time. Like guitar came before film and rock music, so I think I was pulled into wanting to be in a band for the longest time. Thank you. And I think then the Jackass craze took off.
Yes.
And I was very surprised that my parents actually stumped and got me a camera. It was not god awful at the time. I was actually really surprised. It was for a birthday. And of course I spent a whole first summer doing that. And after sort of multiple injuries and sort of friends that tapped out after a little while and things like that, I then did at the very end of it start moving into after graduating high school. In that summer, we started moving into like putting more and more story bits together just for fun, and like moving more into narrative, but nothing with both feet. And so I was really half and half, and I was going to go study music, but I realized in the same way it was like very condensed. It would have been very classical, and you know what I mean, like theory based and all this, and I just really wasn't interested in that because I had years of guitar lessons that were like that. So no, I just went to do it because I think the only thing that made me want to do it is just because I enjoyed having a camera in my hands.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't into real still photography at that time. So I just thought, well, they're going to teach me how to do it properly.
Yeah. And
I'll see what I like best, because I know I'm going to learn editing for the first real time and how to apply music and anything else. So I thought, well, I'll get taught formally that, and then I can see where my passion drives me towards with it.
Yeah.
So I just, I didn't know no real drive, no pull at that moment.
I think a bit like me, when I was growing up, I was always the one in my family that kind of, from a technical aspect, I was always the one that knew how to tune in the TV and sort out the video player and stuff like that. And it's sort of, I'm the same. I really loved having a camera in my hands. It was, quite similar to you, we really loved Jackass, and we'd make funny videos, skateboard videos as well, back when I was like 14. And my dad got us a camera, and he actually got my younger brother a camera, I think, which I sort of claimed ownership of.
You recruited him, and he felt one of the bigger boys.
He was into it as well. But yeah, so I've always kind of...
They just make the best test dummies, the younger brothers.
Yeah, that's right.
My poor brother, like how he never cracked his tailbone several times, I'll never know.
Well, my brother, like me, even more than me, can be a bit of a show off, and he's sort of, maybe if you force him to do things, he's not really into it, but he is naturally funny and will do ridiculous things, and he loved it when we got a camera, and he was really into skateboarding and his scooter as well.
Right, so he doesn't need much coercing.
Not really.
My brother was just easily influenced, and he was just, because he was with the bigger boys, he wanted to try it, and
Also, I think potentially like me, when we were both young, we were probably exposed to films we shouldn't have been exposed to.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I had an older cousin who did that to me. My cousin Lee, he used to, he'd come over and he used to volunteer to be like, "Oh, Auntie Karen, I'll put them to bed. Don't worry." Me and my brother. He'd be like, "I'll go read to them. Don't worry." Or like, I'll get them down. Don't worry." And he would go upstairs, and he oh god, my memory of it is just so menacing. He would like we'd get into bed, and then he'd like pull up a chair, and then he'd pull out like the novelization of Alien 3 or like the old Tales from the Crypt comics.
Yeah.
And he'd just turn them round and show us, and oh god, we would just go to bed traumatized. And it slowly built in. Then he started showing us films and things like that, and then that really, like horror especially, that's what burned it into my brain. Was like him just loving. I think also like learning how to tell a story as well, like really well, because he's so passionate about it. He was like, that rubbed off with me as well. But yeah, he was my exposure, my gateway into films you just shouldn't see at like 9.
See, mine was a little bit different. Mine was, so horror films for me were used as threats and punishment by my nan, who, if ever I'd get dropped off at my nan's and she'd be babysitting us, she would threaten to show me Child's Play or the old TV series if we didn't behave. And I can remember sitting on the sofa. We weren't strapped down or anything, but she'd be putting on Child's Play too, and I have a distinct image in my head of the scene. It's either 2 or 3 where they're in the factory at the end and Chucky's melting and his hands are melting and stuff like that, and that was with me at a really young age.
Tattooed on your brain.
And obviously it terrified me back then, but then you kind of get a little bit older, and then things like Terminator came along. Well, Terminator 2 in particular, I should say. I definitely saw Terminator 2 before I saw Terminator 1. And I'd watch that on repeat and stuff like that. So yeah, both of us, I think, through a love of music and a love of similar type of horror movies and things like that.
It all fed into each other, sort of thing. I'd always loved film. I did enjoy watching them, but I didn't really get a proper respected love for them until college.
Yeah, mine
started watching them.
Mine was the same, and I can remember obviously when we started film studies, and a lot of us had the same reaction, which was, well, a lot of the films I love are absolute shit now, and you start seeing them in a different light.
If you apply a microscope to them, they're like, oh, these terrible, but I still love them. No, you're right.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a history lesson for anybody, like I say, who doesn't know how mine and Tom's relationship came about. So, yes, that's a bit of a history lesson. And as I say, I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while. I used to do a podcast with a couple of friends of mine, and Tom's always said that he wants to get in and have a chat. I think, as I say, because we've got lots in common and we've known each other for a long time. So that's why we're doing this, really. Now, bringing it to a more sort of current situation, you're down here in Weymouth. You've been visiting for the past few days. It was your birthday yesterday.
Yep.
So we've had a busy few days.
Yeah, indeed.
It's the Easter bank holiday weekend has just gone by as well. And I just thought we'd have a quick chat about Sunday.
Right.
Yeah, Sunday. So
Beer Hat Sunday.
Yeah, it's known as Beer Hat Sunday. Not to me, really. This is something that comes from Tom's brother, and I just wanted to give Tom an opportunity to take you through this tradition, which on Sunday I got pulled into for the first time. I've sort of glimpsed it in the past, like from a peripheral, and we kind of arranged to go and have a little pint on Sunday, which turned into something else. So take us through Beer Hat Sunday and where this comes from, and we'll give
like a river.
Yeah, we'll shout us obviously a shout out to Tom's brother Mark Cheetah. But, take us through it.
Yeah, shout out Mark. So they started this 10 years ago. It was just my brother, he's cut from a different cloth. He's a bit more of a lad. Lad. Yeah, a bit more of a lad. He really is. He's got his bros. He's they're all in a football team for years, and they all played for like the local dive pub and all that jazz. And they just started this little tradition when it was a tiny group of them. It was on the Easter Sunday in the middle of the bank holiday. It's that thing of sort of having a drinking day that has rules applied to it for various things. And what they come up with was, to wear funny hats and a T-shirt with a slogan on it that other people in the group picked for you. It started off pretty tame. It would just be Mr. Like, it could be like Mr. So-and-so's ex or, something like that. There's sort of in jokes, really. And then the rules were if you took the hat off at any point during the day, you had to buy the rest of the team penalty shots and all this stuff. They applied these little rules to it, and
basic rules.
Basic rules. And I can't remember what some of the other ones were. Really, it's like it's like you couldn't handle money with one hand or something, like no left hand things like that. I mean, people were watching out for each other. It was weirdly the whole hilarity of it was obviously it all falls by the wayside by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. You know, when they've been going for 6 hours. But it built up.
You should say this day out usually starts quite early as well.
Yeah, so it normally traditionally starts at 10:30
a.m.
Yeah, a.m. They get dropped off into town by whoever, and they have their breakfast, their massive breakfast, and then they start their beer crawl. Then they go across the bridge along the other side of the harbour and make their way back into town on the pub crawl. So it was 10 years of it, and it grew. In the last 2 or 3 years, we went from, you know, there was 10, 12, 15 of them to now I think there's always now around about the 45, 50 mark of them. It's like one of the largest, because the last year I joined in, which was 2 years ago, I had my own t-shirt at the time and everything, and I went to pick it up.
Do you remember what yours said on it?
Well, this is the interesting thing. At the time, I was working for the BBC, and it was in the middle of the U-Tree investigations, and I was incredibly nervous about what they'd pick. I was kind of like, well, guys, the rest of you are having a laugh. I said, but if you put anything related to that on it, and it gets back to my bosses, I'm gone. Because in London and at the time, that was not a laughing matter at all, especially in the BBC. So I was nervous. And they actually went for this sort of elegant simplicity. They literally just put "I hate films" on the back. And it seemed really tame at the time. But I did have people come up to me going, I thought you're Mark's brother, aren't you? He goes, I thought you loved films. I thought that's your whole life. It's like, what's happened? And so people had some genuine concern. And they were also, you know, some people were like, oh, so you don't like any films? Is that it? What are you? Are you like a scholar, or are you like, you know, you're a bookworm? It's like that sort of thing. But like Bill Hicks, like, or you know, what are you reading for? It's like, you know. So it actually kind of worked. It worked pretty well. And I was getting in the cab on the way, and the taxi driver said to me, What's going on? Is there some sort of festival, or are you some sort of stag do or something? I go, no. I said, it's just a little tradition, a group of friends. He goes, oh God. He said, I've seen at least 25 of you lot like walking around different areas of town. He said, I thought you were some sort of like team or something going on. I was like, oh wow. I said, no, there's normally a few of us. I went to the first location. Yeah, there was about 45. Just took over this whole place. All you could see was hats. Like my hat was ridiculous. It was a giant penguin that had a load of bling bling stuck to it. So I had a heavy chain on top of it, and I'd had to prop it up with something inside on top of my head to keep the penguin upright. And he had like tinfoil oil over him, and like for a grill and all this stuff. And some people's hats are so elaborate; they really are. Like they take over their entire head and like down their backs and stuff. And 10:30 it starts, and it rolls around until people quit. It's, you know, it really does sometimes get up to like the 20-hour, 22-hour mark. It's just chaos. But I think the nice thing about it now, though, is because it's grown so much, is I think the t-shirt place where they get everything made up actually contribute some of it to a charity of their choosing now, like a local charity.
Yeah.
So they've tried to put a bit of goodness into it. But it's just known as the heaviest drinking day of the year, because even though, you know, Weymouth also has a pretty heavy Christmas Eve drinking tradition. Yeah. So I think those two combined is like they're the main days of the year if you want to get involved. Yeah.
Sunday, you text me and you said, "Oh, I'm going to meet my brother," and I forgot that that's what it was for. To be honest, I forgot that it was the beer hat.
It wasn't my intention. I was supposed to just go say hey.
Yeah, and and obviously you'd come down for the weekend. I was like, great, let's meet up for a beer. We can tighten, maybe you know, go say hi to Mark. And so you said, oh yeah, let's go for a pint, but I have no intentions of getting trashed. And it's like, yeah, me too. So we went to town. We actually met up with my younger brother briefly initially. Had a pint there, and we thought, okay, let's mooch on over to the quayside, see what's going on. And yeah, like I say, I saw it last year briefly, but there seemed to be triple the amounts of people there this year. Yeah. So this was the pub, I can't remember the name, it's the pub that's under Rendezvous in town. And you go in and you instantly, straight away you see that 99% of the people in the pub are wearing ridiculous hats. Yeah. And when I say 99% of people, this is like in a crowd of like 100 people. Yeah. And they're all wearing this t-shirt that said 10 years on it this time.
That's right, yeah, the anniversary, yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, this is out of hand. I have never, for a start, I don't even know that many people that I'd go out on a day out with. So slightly envious. Obviously, they're all great mates, and they've got this big group that they've set up. But
there are branches. Like it's definitely branched out.
People get roped in.
Yeah. I think they're now thinking of ways that they can distinguish. They're like the originals are going to have different coloured shirts, and then the pledges are going to have different ones. They're like there's some sort of fraternity.
Pledges.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's what they're working on now, because the original group is 12. I've seen something like that. So yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah, they're everywhere, just everywhere, like a gang.
Well, and obviously we spotted Mark, who was wearing a baby's what do you call that?
Baby's bonnet.
Baby's bonnet. Yeah,
giant one. Yeah.
Yeah. So he looked great.
Yep.
And now I forgot that I was actually wearing a hat.
Right.
I had just a beanie on.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, Mark, yeah, sorry, it's great to see you.
Yeah.
Sorry we can't get involved. I forgot to bring a hat." And he was like, "No, you've got a hat on." And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, no, it's not a crazy hat like yours." And I
When you're offended, then he thought, "Oh, you've got a stupid hat on." Oh no, that's my beanie. I've had it for years.
And so I was just kind
ridiculous.
of like, yeah. I just thought, well, if I didn't know what we were going there for, I'd have walked into there and turned around and walked straight back out.
Yeah, because it looks like the most intimidating stag do.
Yeah,
where they're just dropped like lemmings all over the place, and you're just like, what is the unifying thing here? They're not even talking to each other.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean, they're just scattered everywhere.
So this pub obviously is a fairly big pub because it's the one right on the harbour. So although it was full up with them, there was still plenty of room in there. And then, so we had a pint, and then your mum and dad turned up.
Yeah.
And anytime your mum turns up, I think, okay, there's another pint coming my way any second now.
God, yeah.
About 2 minutes later, there it was.
Yep.
And so our going to get a pint and not getting trashed has turned into sort of 3 pints already. And then one of the guys, we were talking to Mark, and he said, everybody's going to go to the Sailor's Return, which is round the corner. And the Sailor's Return is... it's one of these pubs is barely a pub. It's like a large living room, so we had to cram 50 whatever people into this living room, which was fun.
Yeah.
And then I think from that point on is where it just started to kind of ramp up a little bit.
Yeah. It's like they really seem to enjoy finding the pubs that are run by these sort of sassy, salty older women that sort of like sees them all coming. She's like, right, I'm not taking any nonsense from you lot. Like I was only hearing about all the things they had confiscated off them at the start of the day when they were starting their pub crawl. They went into one little bar across the harbour, and the woman took they all had air horns at the time, confiscated a load of those off them. And they kept that sort of thing. I think that's the sort of thing they enjoy. They also have a tradition as well. There's one pub called the Red Lion that's known as a really nice outdoor pub where families go and have dinners. It's like in the middle of this nice square in Weymouth. They just have a tradition where they all go down there en masse, and as they're arriving, the owner just comes running out and goes, "I tell you this every year, just come piss off, just get out of here." And they all just stand there and cheer, and they just go on their way. But this year, actually, I think the neighbouring pub saw them all and saw it all happen and went, "Oh no, lads, you can come in here," because it's all in the same outdoor area.
Yeah.
And they went and they thought about it for a moment, and they thought, no, let's not make this like a competitive thing. We're like, no, this is our tradition. We get rejected from here and we just move on. So we'll carry on. And so, this pub that they always sort of stay in the most, like these, bless them, these women, they just sort of see them all come in and they're like, right, spread yourselves out. And they move them around this bar because it's one of those pubs that's got like a round bar that goes in different rooms, like spread yourselves out, right? And just, like, right, what are you having? And I think they just kind of appreciate it in the end, because the thing is they are quite respectful. Do you know what I mean? Like there's never any trouble, really.
I will say, like, as intimidating as a huge group of lads is, and like you said about Mark, he's cut from a different cloth. It's like I love Mark, I get on with him great, but there's his group of mates and my group of mates are definitely very different. And when we're all sat round at a pub having a chat, we usually talk about very different things.
And if a fight broke out amongst us lot, it would be the most surprising thing ever, like a meteorite landing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, whereas if one or two of them would have a ruck in the corner, it's almost like, just shrug. It's like, take the bottles off them. They're just carry on with it. They're just sort of, they're just cultures.
Yeah, but so as ridiculous as this all day drinking session is everybody did seem well behaved. I didn't see any trouble on Sunday, and then we went to another bar, that Aya place, which I've never been to before. But you know, and that was fine. And we just kept drinking, and so our Sunday bank holiday, Easter Sunday, pint turned into sort of like 12 plus drinks and singing and dancing.
All good intentions, you see.
Yeah, and both of us on empty stomachs as well, because obviously we met at like late lunchtime. We didn't have any dinner, any lunch really, and I felt absolutely horrific the next day.
Yeah. I rolled into my birthday. I had one day of recovery and then rolled into it, like nursing something. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, if you prepare yourself for it, but we just didn't. You know, like I said, like, at least they got to have this big fry up in the morning, whereas we rocked down there just to be like, right, we're going to have a pint, then we're going to shift off and just go get ourselves some dinner somewhere nice and have a chat. And it just didn't turn out that way, did it? I sort of remember like hour 8 rolling by and being, oh God, like, I think I better switch. Like, I think the only sober idea I had was to switch to spirits because I had about 12 or 14 pints of Guinness.
Yeah.
So and like that's the best my ideas are going to be that day. I was like, I couldn't even start to approach the idea of getting some food and sort of slowing down, maybe going somewhere quiet. Like it just doesn't work like that. You're tied into it. You're in a river.
I was like, if Mark's hearing this, I don't want it to seem like that we're shitting on this thing, because it's not. It's brilliant, and
for us it's great.
I had such a great day, but it's just I really paid for it on Monday. I didn't have a sick hangover. I had a headache hangover, and I was really, really rough. You crashed here, and obviously I saw you very briefly in the morning when you left, but you looked as bad as I did. Oh yeah.
Well, don't forget we sort of started at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and we wrapped ourselves up about midnight.
Yeah,
right.
Well, maybe a little bit earlier than midnight. I think we were back by 11. Yeah.
Mark didn't get home until 7 p.m.
Jesus.
So at that point, he'd basically done a full 20 hours with non-stop, and he hadn't eaten it all either.
I've never done that, and I don't think I could.
No, I'll comically as well tell that he forgot to take a key out with him as well, and his girlfriend stayed at a friend's, and he had to ask her to come let him in, and she found him in their parking garage with his head like in his shirt like a turtle to conserve his body heat, because he only went out a t-shirt as well. So all he had was his bonnet on, the t-shirt. He had his head folded into his sort of neck hole like a turtle to preserve his core temp. He was saying, keep my core temp.
Oh, he's
up.
Trained now.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
he knows what he's talking about.
I said that doesn't make it sound any better. That still sounds embarrassing as shit. But that's 2 years running he did it. So yeah. But yeah, good night had by all.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was a laugh. It just, as I say,
they're a good bunch. They are, you know, they're all.
Everybody was, like I say, I didn't know any. I know Mark, but I didn't know anyone else. But they were all great to me. I think probably a couple of them bought me a drink as well. Yeah, and I was just go ahead.
That's the other thing as well that's really nice is people do, like, it doesn't work out to be an expensive night really, because the sort of cycling of drinks and rounds and that works out pretty well for people.
I'm pretty sure I spent like 13 quid
really
for the whole night. Like,
you know.
I think that's only from buying you a cup. Me and you bought each other a couple of drinks, and that was it.
I know, and they always know the barmaids and that as well, especially when we got to the club, because the main girl there that was serving is one of their good friends, so you know it was doubles for nothing. And,
the whiskies we had were definitely stronger.
Exactly.
But yeah, it was good.
Let's get you more piss for less. It's Weymouth's sort of philosophy, really. You know.
So yeah, nice relaxing Easter Sunday.
Yeah. Good old tradition.
Yeah, and then obviously, as I said, it was your birthday. It was your birthday yesterday. Yeah. Happy belated birthday for that. You spent a day with the family yesterday. Mm-hmm. All good, all very nice. Yeah. So yeah, there's another reason why Tom's come on today to speak to me, and that's because, as I mentioned at the start, Tom's been moving. Tom's not been moving into filmmaking. He's been working in filmmaking for a while, and as I say, he's done a few projects of his own, and he has been kind of ramping up production on his latest one. And so we won't sit and just talk about getting pissed on Easter Sunday today. We wanted to give this sort of a reason, but this new project that you've got coming up, I just kind of wanted to give you a chance to talk about that. Tell us where it came from. I know it's still kind of in the early stages, and you know, whatever you want to say, great.
Yeah.
Whatever you don't want to say is fine.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
You know, tell us about the film. Tell us what your intentions are. You know, where did this come from, and all that kind of lovely stuff.
Well, yeah, as you said, like just before I moved to London. So I moved to London 3 years ago, and the year before that, I was still working in a prison at the time. I was a night officer in the prison, and I'd have weeks on and weeks off, like every other week. You know, it was off. And in that time, I raised a bit of money and I saved a bit of money, and I made my first, what I would say is my first proper short film. But I mean, I'd made 3 before that, but it was my film Crocodile. And after that was finished, it went to a couple of like small festivals and that. But what it did is it got me invited onto a BFI talent development course, which was like for emerging filmmakers in the country.
Yeah.
And it was their pilot scheme that they were for people outside of London. It's for filmmakers outside, and it was held in Brighton, and it was the equivalent of Sundance Labs, and they would take us up every month, or twice a month sometimes, and we were doing these labs with these master classes with people, starting with all the way from writers and development people right the way through the year. This went on for a full year, all the way to all the way to exhibition and sales agents and things like that. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing, we were working through it. We were supposed to be working on our first feature scripts that we would then submit to the BFI to put us into the program for first-time feature films. And it was occurred to me I was the only horror guy there. I was actually on it with like some pretty prominent people. I was on it with Francis Lee, who went on to make God's Own Country. Mm-hmm. It was like he was developing it there at the time as well. And the team that made Lady Macbeth as well, they were there on the course with me. But I was like the horror guy and made this horrible drug horror film.
Yeah,
and,
I remember it.
Yeah, and I was working on.
It was about, just quickly, that film was about your skin rotting away after taking this drug or something like that.
Yeah, it's about that Russian homemade drug they called Crocodile. Yeah. That they were making out there from homemade ingredients that was killing people's skin, and it was a crazy news story in 2013 or something like that. It was, spread around the world. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was a fun watch.
Yeah, it's grim, isn't it? And whilst I was there, I was working on this feature idea, but I got to like one of the last months, and I spoke to the people at the BFI. I said, I'm not fully into this idea. I don't think it's quite. I've not hit it right. I don't think I want to submit it. They said, well, of course, it's going to be another year of development after that. So if you're not into it now, spending a year on it is probably not going to help.
Yeah.
If you haven't found the love for it yet, or whatever. So I wrote 2 other little short scripts in that time, and Black Tide was one of them. And I showed it to them, and I showed it to some agents that they had set up for us. And they all sort of unanimously said, like, you should do this because this feels like a progression from your last work. It's in your same wheelhouse, and people can see it being a tangible new film from you. So I sort of life happened in between. I moved to London and I started working and all that, and so I've only just sort of got round to a place where I've got a good enough team around me that of people that want to do it.
Yeah, because I remember hearing about the idea for this film maybe a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago or something like that.
Oh, yeah, at least.
So it's kind of been parked for a while, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had every intention of doing it quickly, but, I didn't expect to, but within 4 months of moving to London, I started working for the BBC, and that was an amazing sort of 2 years that just went really quick, and then after that I worked for Google, and so I wouldn't say I got sidetracked. I was developing myself the whole time as a filmmaker as well and everything else, but it just took the right time for me to find, especially my producers Max and Mel from Little Ground Road. They were it's one of those things where you feel like you were all waiting for them to come around to then make it. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it anyway, but the magic ingredients came together at the start of this year, so we've just sort of jumped in both feet, and we've been putting it together. We've got a great team together, and so we're just going to go off and do it in the late spring. So do you want to tell us any more about because I know that a campaign's been launched for it, so obviously the title, or whether this is going to be the final title or not, or whether it's just a working title, and do you want to give a brief synopsis? So like everything I make is kind of always got a factual tinge to it. And like my last film was made off an article from The Independent. This started off very differently, but it's set during the Black Death in the UK, and it's a story about two men who work on a beach, and their job is to prepare dead bodies that will be collected by this group of doctors and pharmacists. And what they do is, at the time, there was dissections were kind of really, I say frowned upon. They were kind of like outlawed in the UK because they thought it made it worse and spread the disease. And also there was a lot of religious paranoia at the time. And so they weren't allowed to really do autopsies and dissections in cities or towns. So what a group of people would do is they would get together in secret and they would do these things on bodies. They would do these dissections on bodies that had no next of kin and weren't claimed. They were never, like, they were going to be buried in mass pits and sort of forgotten about. So it was almost like grave robbing. They would pay people who would take them down to harbours, and they would just go onto boats and just do these dissections underneath boats. And there was always these little recordings that I found in like the research of people who used to take these bodies and prepare them and sort of sell them per body to these groups, and they so that they didn't get their hands dirty on taking the bodies, and they would do the dissections on them and things like that. So it's a horror film about what it's like to be surrounded by death on both sides, and you like your whole entire job is handling dead bodies. And then also these people you work for are they're quite a secretive, powerful people, because that's what the doctors and medical people were back then as well. And yeah, so we've got it. We're casting at the moment. We do have a campaign going to sort of top up our funds and that, because we're still working with like the bodies that be and the people that train me and things like that, like the people at the BFI and Creative England and things like that. But it's also just like the great thing about things like Indiegogo pages or GoFundMe's is they're just a great central point for the whole film to be broken down for everyone to just see what it's about.
Is,
It sort of seems to work more effectively than a website, really, because we can update it. And so it's on Indiegogo, and it's just under the title The Black Tide. And it's run by Little Grand Road. That's the production company. They've got their own website as well. You can Google them. And we're due to shoot at the end of May. We're just sort of putting the last bits together now.
What do you see this film as for you? What's your intention? Is it just something that you think this is just a ridiculous idea? This is just a really interesting idea. This is a crazy, sick idea that you really want to, with this story that you really want to tell, or do you see it as more part of your development and moving on, and maybe moving on to something else in the future? Because obviously we're living now, so many people can it's so much easier for people to make short films these days. People are making them on their iPhones and stuff like this. So for you, what is it that makes it so important to treat this so seriously, so professionally, and not just go out and shoot it guerrilla style and really get the right people involved and stuff like that? And because it's even at this kind of low budget level, it still sounds like you're getting people involved, and you're trying. It's not just you going out with a camera
for it.
So to you, why is it important that you do it that way? And what's your intention in terms of finishing this thing?
Well, I mean, I'm one of those people. I had this when I was working with my training with the BFI. They did say, like, if you want to practice your craft, the best thing to do is to do the two people in a room, write a script and get two people in a room and go shoot it. And like, honest to God, this is my best attempt at that. I just seem to be unable to contain an idea to that level. And this did initially start as two people on a beach in Montes. I think they were beer smugglers or something like that. And it was supposed to be just almost like a theatre piece, a two-handed piece. And it just didn't get finished because I just obviously did not have the interest. Like I did, there was no idea within it that sustained me to want to do it enough. And it wasn't until I started putting these extra components in it and made it a horror film and made it something that I would actually watch if I came across. And I just realized that I just can't really do that. So to do this, to give this film the best chance to come out how it should be, it needs to be scaled up and done to a proper degree. And it's half what you said. it's very much like the story is its own thing, and I want to just make this film because I want, the story seems to be good enough, inspired enough people to come on it. They think it's good also, and worthy of being made. And also for me, I just want to sort of push the envelope further again, and just exhibit the progression I feel like I've made, and like, you know, the people, like the crew I've gotten, and my sensibilities, and hopefully everything's a bit more refined and slick, and you know, so that's, you know, it's just really half and half. It's like, it's a compulsion, but it's also just it's like a, I guess, logistical career move. It's just a way to apply all the extra skills I've learned in the intervening years, working professionally within the industry.
No, I think you're doing it the right way, because I'm not really a fan of just kind of blagging through, you know, making anything. Some people obviously do very well at that, but I don't know what it is about me, but I think you'll always discover, I think once you start to bring in maybe some other people, there'll just be things, this idea that you might have had will just turn into something that you probably weren't expecting it was going to turn into, and they'll see things that you, in a way that you don't see them.
It would be a free fall of compromise if you know, I mean, it's a period film for first instance, so doing it guerrilla style means you'd have to strip away so much of the things that fill the frame that sell that you could end up with just two people with raggy clothes and like, you're hoping, like, you'd have to I think I'd have to plaster on the screen what year it was for people to sort of get it, and I think that kind of sells it short and sort of negates the artistry of it, really. It's just sort of, you know, and I just can't, it's one of those things where you can't see doing it any other way. And I'm just lucky in the sense that I do know good people that have sort of like been developing up with me at the same time, like my DOP Ed, who's a good friend of ours, and he's been working professionally as well in Wales on a multitude of like high budget BBC dramas and things like that, and he's really honed his craft, and I think we both want to, and he shot Crocodile also. I think we both want to sort of, you know, just do it again. It's also about like getting the gang together and making something, you know. So yeah, you know, we just want to give it the best shot it has. Yeah, no, I think
from what I know about it, it sounds really good, and I'm sort of really keen to see how the production goes. And obviously I saw the recce photos and things like that. So tell us about that, because you have been to some of these locations already where you're intending to shoot.
Yeah, well, originally we were thinking of bringing it home to Dorset, because there was like a little Dorset connection to it, you know, and like part of the inspiration for why it's set during that time and all that. And me being from here, I know the area and things. But it didn't quite work out. My producers just felt logistical reasons and other reasons why we decided on Wales. And we took a crazy sort of like 24-hour day where we drove down there and saw a lot of different beaches and coves that we had access to. And we ended up with one in Pembrokeshire. It's onto this farm, and it's just perfect for it. It's really secluded, and it's got the right shape, and it's sort of you know, it's not there unless you know it's there, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, we just found the people in Wales to be just really, really receptive and fun, and they're no strangers to film productions. You know, they're like all the Harry Potters and things have all filmed around them, numerous other things. But they're just a really nice, friendly bunch, and Ed being based there really helps, because we'll have a lot of crew, of people he knows, and things like that. So yeah, no, it's worked out really well. We had a good day with it. It was a long day. It was 550 odd miles of driving that I did solo. But it's not the hardest I've done, but that was definitely a bit of an endurance test.
So yeah, no, that all sounds good. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
Keep me posted.
Of course.
And good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Now, another thing we did in the last few days, obviously we've just been talking about your own film, but we went to the cinema.
Oh yeah?
The cinema, which is something obviously we both love to do. And I just thought we'd have a quick chat about A Quiet Place, which is it A Quiet Place or The Quiet Place?
A Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place, which is a film we went to see the other day. It's our first cinema trip together in ages.
Oh wow, yeah. God,
I think we did go to the cinema in Bristol together, like maybe...
that would have been Gone Girl.
Gone Girl, that was it. Oh, okay, that wasn't too long ago. What's that, a couple of years
2014.
ago? Oh, God. No way.
16, sorry.
I was going to say, 4 years ago.
2016, yeah, my bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we had a little trip to the cinema the other night. Your mum came with us as well, which was good. I was quite impressed, even in the car on the way there, the way she was talking about movie going and stuff. I'm like, oh, I wish my parents, were this kind of into films. She sort of seems to make an effort.
It's rubbed off on her. Obviously, her and her friends that they travel a lot together. They go on a lot of holidays and stuff. But their actual entertainment choices they vary wildly. So and my mum's more open to things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she'll go see something other than the next 50 Shades film that they all like. That's the only thing they agree on.
The thing that's in the headlines, she'll see other stuff.
I mean, I took my mum as well to go see like The Shining when it was re-released on Halloween at the cinema. I was like, I don't know how many mums would willingly want to go watch that.
No, that's right.
She loved it. She loved it.
Yeah. So whenever I go to the cinema with Jess, usually the first thing she does when we come out the doors is she goes, "Oh, so what did you think?" Right. And I really struggle with that when I go to the cinema because generally when I watch a film, I'll enjoy it or dislike it. I'll have so many thoughts going around in my head, but I probably need a good. I need at least an hour to think about what I really thought about it. Yeah. So whenever somebody asks me what did I think about a film 5 minutes after I've seen it, I'm just like, I don't know. Yeah, it was great. Or I might say I loved it, and then actually 20 minutes later, I'll decide that I absolutely hated it. Yeah. But we went to see A Quiet Place. I managed to avoid seeing any trailers or anything.
That's good.
Before we went in, so I was really.
Going in blind.
Yeah, I was going in blind, and so the first 5 minutes, I will say, weren't the best first 5 minutes because this film we won't get too spoilery about it, and just because I think it's good etiquette not to spoil films unless you explicitly say you're going out to spoil something. Yeah. So, but the film opens with people that aren't talking, and it's very quiet. And within, I think, sort of 5 minutes, someone in the back row sneezed really loudly.
Oh, yeah. For comedic effect.
Yeah.
In parentheses, comedic effect.
And it just kind of like, I mean, that's really fucking annoying. And everyone kind of laughed, and that was a bad start. Yeah. And there was also 2 young girls chatting behind us who I had to tell to shut up. Yeah. Because I just thought, look, we're 5 minutes into the film and you're still talking. Yeah. Shut your mouth. Yeah. So I was not in a great mood to begin with, but the sort of prologue to the film is about sort of 10-15 minutes long, and by the time the opening title hits the screen,
you're
I was
well
surprised.
In the world,
I was just sort of, holy shit! I did not see that coming. Yeah. What the hell is this?
It's very deftly done. Yeah. Definitely.
And I really loved it. And so the film I thought was great. It was is directed by John Krasinski and stars him and his wife Emily Blunt, Emily Blunt just for some reason seems to be probably one of the best actresses on the planet at the moment.
Definitely. Definitely one of the most, after Sicario. Well, no, she's done loads before that as well. But Sicario especially, she's doing it. She's an amazing actress. Absolutely amazing.
So as I said, I'd like to I need a good hour or so to digest it. I was still thinking about it at 3:30 in the morning. I really struggled to get to sleep. Not because I was scared. For those who don't know, it is a horror film. Yeah. I wasn't frightened. I would just, for some reason, I kept replaying scenes over in my head, and I just think that says so much about that film, about how powerful it was.
Was it the scenes themselves, or did you supplement yourself into the film? And
the scenes
did you repeat scenarios?
That's a really good question. Both. It was definitely both. It was, holy fuck, what would I do if that was me? And then also, oh my god, that was so clever. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. In particular, the scene I really loved involves a bit where some water is introduced. Right. And it sort of adds. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it too much because I think it's silly to do that. But I just kept replaying these scenes over and over in my head, and I just think that film really caught me off guard. Yeah. Now, as I say, I didn't see the trailer. You, I think, had seen the trailer before going in. So my kind of reaction now, a few days later, is the film was great. I'm going to see it again. I'm going to take Jess because she's going to love it and she's going to scream her head off. Yeah. And there's lots to love about it. I loved the sound design. I loved other design in it as well, which again, I don't want to be explicit about. And it was just kind of really brave to have these two big movie stars who barely utter a word for the entire film.
Yeah.
And yeah, loads to love about it. And I'm just curious to know if coming out of it, your kind of feelings are the same, or do you wish you hadn't seen maybe the trailer going in, and how did it impact you? And the only reason I bring this up is 'cause obviously we've been talking, you know, we met through a love of films. Obviously we're great mates now, and there's loads of things, you know, it's not just, we're not just friends because we like films.
Yeah.
And you've come on here and you're having a chat about your film, but I thought, you know, that's the most recent film we've seen. Let's talk about it. It really affected me. It's still kind of affecting me a few days later. And what was your kind of feelings about this film?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny because I do go a lot to the cinema. You know, I refer to it in my house as church, and I go every Sunday, like religiously, for a nice pun. And it's funny because I would have seen it, like if the problem is I don't think it's complimenting myself, but I'm just too informed, so I know of everything that's coming out, and sometimes it's to a fault, and so most of the time it doesn't actually play against me though.
That is a really good way of putting it, because I have had to when I say I've not seen the trailer, that's not by accident. That's on purpose.
You have to actively block them out. Yeah.
Stop yourself from reading reviews and watching trailers, because it is everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So. I mean, I've got like websites I trust that don't spoil things if I want to just maybe bone up a little bit on the details of it or something like that. But I was just fascinated by this just because like I heard about it in the trades and stuff as well. You know, like I heard the original idea of it when it came together. Apparently, like, you know, originally like the script was written with one line of dialogue in it by the guys that wrote it, and they had been shopping it for years and things like that. I saw some trailers for it, and then I did stop reading any publicity about it, other than just to hear that it had an amazing debut at South by Southwest Festival, and just with the care that they gave it. I know that, you know, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt worked on it really hard together. You know, it was their maiden voyage, just working together as a married couple as well, which is, you know, fraught with risk. Like it must be.
It is. Like, I mean, that doesn't even really happen that often, even today.
No, you have to be.
Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie in Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Well,
is what I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, they also did that other film years later, didn't they?
Oh,
the
they
Lighthouse
did.
one, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's right.
Divorced less than 2 years later.
Yeah.
So in a quite spectacular fashion. Yeah. So, you know, I think you know that. Besides, it was the fact that. Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry. It was just you know, because I, like, for instance, like I'm director led by most things I watch as well. Like obviously I'll see any horror film because that is my religion, and but I am director led, and obviously John Krasinski, you know him as Jim from The Office, and then also when he grew a beard and became a badass for that Michael Bay film, you know, where they shoot a lot of people from a rooftop, and that's all you kind of know. And like, I'm not saying I pigeonhole ever, but to hear that this is his first film he's directing as a horror film, something you've not associated with him at all, you put a bit of trepidation in it, and you sort of think, well, and then, you know, to be fair, I try not to be. I would have seen it anyway. I definitely would have. But when I heard how it was received at South by Southwest, and they're quite a discerning bunch, especially for genre films, I was like, oh wow, like they seem like they've nailed this. And then I learned more about it. I learned that they actually had, you know, Millicent Simmons is actually a deaf actress, a genuine deaf actress, and how they handled that was just amazing. Like, and like the character and like her as a person, like her disability informed the character, and sort of how it worked to her advantage within her character in the film. Everything like that was all just great. I just walked out of it. Just, you know, I tried to take my critical hat off, as in, like, I mean, not to say like
it is
an
difficult
person.
No, but I'm obviously I'm not out there making short films, but I'm the same as you, and I'm this weird.
Like, my first review in my head was like, that was a well put together film.
Yeah,
you know? Like, but then I like to just look at it as a normal person and be like, oh, that was scary in places. I mean, very jaded. I don't jump at things, but I was like, that is genuinely shocking. I was like, you know, and they went there with some places. They really went there, which I like. They didn't pull any punches really in a lot of things. And it was just very, very well put together, and it's just a really inspiring thing to see like another tick in the thing of this resurgence of horror films lately.
It's crazy, isn't it? How so after we saw it as well, and one thing I said to you when we were walking to the car is, and I was completely wrong when I said this, because since we've seen it, I've gone and watched some interviews with Krasinski and like watched some behind the scenes and stuff. And when I come out of it, I was like, fucking hell, he must have loved horror growing up.
Yeah, no.
And it turns out he's like, nope,
he can't watch them.
He literally doesn't watch them. He's never even thought about moving into horror or anything like that. It's obviously these guys wrote it and then he adapted the script, and so
he
like,
sort of tweaked it.
It's like 3 writers at the end of the day. But he saw it from this family point of view and stuff like that, which is all
like an acting
fantastic.
challenge.
But I was just like, I could not believe that someone who is so out of touch with horror could make this thing that was so horrifying. And like you say, the resurgence of horror, because when I think about the scariest films that I've seen in my life, there's like a weird 10 or 15 year gap of the past 10 or 15 years where not a lot has come out that's been impressive horror wise. But then the past like 3 years, I can think of like maybe 4, 5, 6 horror films that have been some of the scariest stuff you will ever see in your life, and this is up there as one of them for me now. And
I agree. I think intent goes a long way with horror films, and one of the things that is so consistent when when the creators speak honestly about their intent when making them, the idea of like making a scary film is not really the thing. It's more they connect onto something, because like something that I've learned over the years as well, and speaking to other filmmakers, is there has to be a central theme or idea that you need to latch onto, that's like this permanent burning flame that never dies out, that carries you through the making of the rest of it. And usually it's not something like, I want this to be the funniest comedy or the most romantic film or the scariest horror. It's like
this person, like, or this character.
Or like for him, it was this family dynamic, like a family that can't speak to each other, have to communicate silently.
And he said they just had their second kid and stuff like that, and so instantly he was like, family. It was all about family protection. And
it's something him and his wife could tap into pretty well. It's like, I can imagine, like, she speaks about it a lot, it's the easiest film she's ever had to cry in, she said, because like transference of your family in danger, and that will come very easily as a young mother, but I imagine but it reminds me of when they interviewed Andy Muschietti for It. He always would say that of course he wants to make it a scary film and a good tribute to the source material, and and it has to like do tribute to Stephen King and it, and the fans. But his whole draw to it was these group of kids, these misfit kids that he could connect with, and the film centers around them, and then it informs and makes everything better. The horror, the scares, the comedy. But that was his central focus.
It's completely true, because with It, which I think is obviously a really scary film, there's so much scary stuff about it, but those kids, they say things that I'm like, I said that when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's genuine.
As soon as that happens in a film, you're just like, oh wow, like I'm in this world. You imagine yourself as one of those characters. There's a specific line in It which to me, it's one of my favourite lines in the film, and it's nothing horrific. There's a line where they're stood by the river, and I don't know which character is saying it, but he's like, "Oh, watch out for that. That's poison ivy." And he's like, "No, that's not poison ivy." He goes, "Yeah, no, that's poison ivy over there." And I just remember being sort of 10 years old when you used to say everything was poison ivy out in the wood. I mean, I grew up next to a forest as well, so it was a big sort of deal. And it's just like, it's so ridiculous. Of course, it's not poison ivy. But as soon as they said that, I was like, I said that when I was a kid, and now like I'm that person. Holy shit! That clown that's chasing him, he's chasing me.
Exactly. Yeah. If it puts you within the world of the film better, and genuine characters do that, like the mum jokes and all that stuff. Like
the mum jokes as well. That's it.
They were all on point and accurate, and just felt insanely natural. And that's what I mean. And that's down to him focusing on that and just believing in the rest that would work within that. It's interesting, because if you took it out of the film, it would not be anywhere near as scary by secondary nature, but also just not a rich film because of it at all. It's an interesting. That's the thing that I think they remember in cycle, like horror filmmakers, they remember in cycles every few years is. oh, wait a minute, it's not really, let's not try to scare people in the sense of obviously they're trying, but let's not make a horror film about horror.
Yeah.
We make a horror film about people, and it always works that way.
I mean, it kind of, it's weird because probably one of the only genres where this rule gets broken is comedy, because you can have absolute nonsense with comedy and it be really funny, but whenever you watch, I watch interviews with, I watch screenwriter classes and there's sit downs with them and stuff like that, and that's all it comes down to at the end of the day. It's those relatable characters, and if you haven't got them, everything else is going to absolutely fail. But then comedy does kind of, because comedy can just be someone getting slapped in the face, and as ridiculous as that sounds,
but the only way that works usually is if you've got an actor well, and them as a person is the character, so you kind of feel familiar with them and know them, and then it works. It's, if it's somebody completely random that's not had any development, like you don't know who they are, what they do.
But I love watching Fail Army on YouTube, and that's people falling on their ass, and I'm laughing my head off at it.
Yeah, well, that's the concept, isn't it? Is you're going to watch little clips of people like falling on their asses and stuff or hurt themselves, and that is, I mean, that's just why Jackass was so funny, because we really didn't we learned to know who these people were over time, but initially it was just like, oh my god, like this is on TV, this is literally just people smashing into a wall,
this is true.
TV, and oh my god, it works so well. Like, why has no one thought of this? Like, like it's just, it was a bunch of crazy Americans, and then you got to know them, and it informed it and got better.
Yeah.
But I suppose you're right. Yeah, it's
So I mean, because I just think sometimes you can watch, because comedy can be because comedy's completely subjective, and whereas like well-told story and character, I think as long as you're switched on, you will always get sucked into it, and it's why certain films do so well. But then comedy, you will get people that absolutely hate it and some people that absolutely love it, and I think because you either just find something funny or you don't, and sometimes it takes zero work to make something funny. Like somebody can literally, something that's puns are really funny. There's no character development in a pun.
No,
and it's just
true. Delivery
and like Austin Powers is a film that's all it basically is pun after pun after pun after pun, and it's just like, I don't care.
But it is character though. You've not seen this person before, and so coming out of him as a package is what makes it work. But you're right. Comedy, like horror, is so subjective about what scares people.
Yeah. I mean, horror is. I will say horror, I think, is so. It's so much harder than comedy. I think I suppose that's the point I'm trying to make. I think comedy is probably, it's why there's so many more successful comedies, and why people like Kevin Hart are making loads of money. It's because it's quite easy to make a comedy. People will laugh at it,
inoffensive.
Kevin Hart doing a backflip that fails is funny to
but the whole
lots of
premise
people.
of that is fat man falling down, which a broad spectrum of people can just smirk at, and that's enough for them. If they go in and just sit and smirk at it.
The weird thing about horror is you show. So, okay, what's a standard? You show a mummy, right? A guy in bandages. You could have a near identical looking mummy, like say a guy in bandages. Yeah. If you show that in a context where, like say, you're not caring about the characters or you're not caring about the setting of the world, you're going to laugh. You're going to just think this is so stupid. But if you've somehow set up a tone where set up this world where all of a sudden you are in it, you're going to be terrified by that. And
it's funny because that's like the dynamic where that shifts is like slasher films, because it's teenagers that you don't really relate to, because they're normally these fabulous teenagers who are from these lovely parts of the US and beautiful and going to the parties and all that, and then you do still sort of, you run with them when they're being chased around, but you're still also satisfied when they're caught, and it's a weird sort of, I mean, it's probably saying too much about myself, but it's like a weird fantasy sort of deliverance, when it happens. And that's why horror. For me, that's why I find horror so multifaceted in that way. Is all these different levels.
Well, some of them are.
You can appreciate.
They literally make some of those films purely just to have those kind of setups, don't they? And,
like fantasy things.
And I suppose that's. Yeah, it's about what kind of mood you're in. So this is another thing that I find funny about horror. So when me and Jess watched It Follows, right, which to me is like it's so fucking terrifying.
Yeah,
and I've been thinking about A Quiet Place, and I'm wondering if A Quiet Place is scarier than It Follows, but then I'm like, they are quite different, and I'm not sure there's any point in comparing them. You know, they both exist, so it's just like there's no point ranking films. For me, it's become a bit of a silly thing.
Yeah, it's just such a subjective term.
What I find funny about it is, so we put that film on, and the opening scene, now this is going to be a tiny bit spoilery for anybody who's not seen it. It's only the beginning. So the opening shot is this long, like 360 degree pan of like a neighborhood, and you see this girl running out, and then there's like a smash cut to her dismembered body on a beach. And when that came up on the screen, Jess started laughing,
right?
Like thinking this is really stupid.
Okay.
And I paused the film and I was like, look, stop. What are you doing? Like, you know, this is just, you're throwing us
know
at
the concept before she started
No, neither of us did. And we watched this film. You'd recommended this film to us.
I see.
And I was like, I've been
and you
meaning
didn't
to
know
watch
the concept
it.
of it.
Didn't know anything about it. And I don't know what caused it. It's just, again, it's something in the air. It's the mood you're in.
Yeah, it's the reaction.
I don't know if, was it dark enough outside? I don't know. But anyway, so she burst out laughing.
Right.
And she's usually quite into horror films, but she burst out laughing, and so I had to pause it. I was like, stop, like this, we need, like, just, you know, submit yourself to the film, let's watch this, because I found it, I was already into it. That opening shot I loved. I was like, instantly I was like, it just looks like a John Carpenter film, and it's
you
just
pulled
like,
right into it.
And I know that's sort of the easy fucking reference to make that everyone makes,
film,
but I was like, okay, I'm in, and then, you know, you see this horrible shot of her dismembered body, and then and just started laughing, and I was just like, okay, this is ridiculous. But so then half an hour later, there's the scene with the big tall guy coming into the bedroom, and she was screaming, hiding behind a pillow, and so was I. You know, I was just like, my heart was in my throat. And so what changed between those opening 2 minutes and then half an hour later where she was shitting her pants, and that continued for the rest of the film. The rest of the film, you know, the beach scene everyone talks about is terrifying.
Yeah, of course.
And stuff like that.
I mean, for me, if I was analytical about it, it'd be one or two things. One, the fact that scene sort of concluded and deflated really quickly than expected might have sort of, you know, caused like an emotional sort of shift to be like, almost relief, I guess, or maybe she felt that it hadn't earned that thing because it hadn't gone long enough, but it was the point of it. But
it's weird because I watched it and I was shocked when I saw that.
And you didn't know the concept either. No. That's interesting, because it's one of those films I actually think you benefit from knowing, like, the concept before you go in, just a loose concept, because it is very broad and just very, you know.
Some people might watch that and not have a clue what's going on.
Well, that's what I mean, and it is done in a very ethereal, cerebral sort of indie film way. It's like the rules aren't really established. Well, they are, but it's not telegraphed as you would from a commercial film. But I think the difference, I guess, is once the rules are established, like the fact that you then start seeing the thing. I think maybe it's just the fact that she saw nothing, that you don't, like, there was just an invisible thing that just did this horrific right angle of her leg, and that's it. I think it's a combination of that. It's that plus also just the fact that it finished prematurely, supposedly, but it does set up the thing quite well. It's efficient, you know what I mean? So I think, but that's right. Even within a concept, you know what I mean? It's like slashers. So I go back to slashers. For instance, like Halloween is a good one. Now, some people can't stand the idea of, like, the part where he's there in the broad daylight. You know, if you're stood in your house, you look out your window. That's like the scariest
shot of the entire film.
Exactly. And then there's other people, because don't forget he invented all this. Is the idea of him being in the backseat of a car that you can't see. That terrifies some people the most, and that's normally down to, like, your association with your own life, which is, I drive a lot at night. Or which the other one is, I'm home alone during the day quite a bit. If I looked out my window and saw someone stood in my washing line, then, do you know what I mean? And people make these quick parallels. They don't even know, and it sometimes happens so quick they don't even know it. And I think for Jess, for instance, then, let's say by that same token, is if, you know, the idea of somebody in her bedroom at night walking towards her, not responding to her, like, screaming and lashing out, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like cornered in your own private room. There must have been some sort of real mental connection association.
Rather than being really sort of, assumptive. That's not a fucking word, is it? Assumptuous? Assumptive? God, I hope that's a word. Should we find out? Should we see what she thought? Let's just get her in here for 2 minutes. Jess? Just come here a sec. So we're just talking about It Follows. Tom, you hold on to that. Come here and just kneel in front of this mic. Yeah, just so you can get in front of it. So basically we were talking about horror films. And do you remember when we watched It Follows? Mm-hmm. And do you remember how that first scene, when it cuts to the girl with the broken, ripped open leg, you just started laughing? Mm-hmm. And then half an hour later, when the big tall guy comes into the room, you were like screaming and really scared. So why did you do that? What was it about the start of that film that was funny to you, but then half an hour later you were too terrified to even look at the screen?
I thought to start with it was like just another one of those like teen films. I sort of felt the same with like Cabin in the Woods. To start with, I thought it was just another cheesy like
slasher.
Yeah. And then it just completely changed, and I was absolutely terrified. I can't put my finger on exactly what it was.
So you thought somebody had done that to her and left her there, and that was kind of funny because it's like it's not even covering their tracks, and it's just kind of dumb to just break someone's leg and like on top. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Think it just felt like one of those like silly.
So there you go. It's like the association thing. You know what I mean? It's like the fill in the gaps of the fact that you never see who did it or why or whatever. Yeah. You assume a person did it, and that makes it silly because it's so public. And I guess I can.
I think I've watched so many horror films as well now that when I see something like that, it is like. Yeah.
But here's the thing: when I was watching that film when it started, and I saw the cut to that dismembered girl, I was horrified, and I'm. This is going to sound ridiculous, but I'm braver than you when it comes to horror films. Yeah. So, but why? What specifically? When we were watching that film, why do you think I was into it and I was shocked and horrified, and then you saw the cut to that girl and you just started laughing and thought it was ridiculous?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I don't know if it was things I read beforehand, like reviews and stuff. A lot of people saying that it was rubbish. And I guess maybe going into it...
Ah, there we go.
I guess maybe going into it, I thought...
there we go.
It was
There's
like,
the picture. Tom's just pulled it up on his phone.
Yeah.
So you'd read reviews saying the film was rubbish?
Yeah, I think...
Okay.
So. I think that's what it was. So I think I must have gone into it not feeling quite as...
You had some preconceived notions then that it was going to be a bit subpar and cheesy.
Yeah, I think that's what it was like. I thought it was going to be like another... Even with that, I think I thought it was just going to be like Saw.
Right. Okay.
Or something
I see.
like
So
that.
like a horror film you could laugh at, a bit like Saw is.
Because the only stuff I'd heard about the film was, oh my god, this is the most terrifying horror film made in
it's
10
super
years.
serious.
Oh, no, I didn't.
I
hadn't. No, things
there you go.
It might not even be like reviews. It might have just been people like at work or whatever who've been to see
Idiots.
it. And even now, like I've told people that I work with now to watch it, and they've said to me, "I'm never asking Jess for recommendations of films again."
I've had that as well.
That is so weird to me. That someone can watch that film and not be scared.
It is it's a 50-50 film. It's like what do you call it? Marmite. Yeah, it's a Marmite film. Like, I mean, I try not to listen to people that are like, "Oh, it's scary," or like that sort of. That's not really a critique. It's more. I think people just like the retroness of it and the thing you can't place the time it's set.
But that I love about that is so
some people
good.
just don't like it if it's not telegraphed right. It's just not.
Oh, sorry,
doesn't
there's
work
not a
for them.
signpost here telling you exactly what's going on.
Well, it's that, and just
this is what I tell you. What this is what people are going to hate about A Quiet Place as well, because we don't find out where it all comes from and all this kind of stuff. And
no, I think the thing about A Quiet Place, I'll say, as opposed to It Follows, is just it is a more commercial film in the sense that it looks. I don't say it looks right because It Follows does not look wrong, but it is edited and soundtracked and made within the realm of an American horror film, right? Not that doesn't take anything away from it, but It Follows is an indie film made by an indie filmmaker who'd never made a horror before and isn't now. His next film isn't. So it's it's esoteric. It's just, you know, it's his individual. Like, he's amalgamated all his influences together and made something. Whereas something like A Quiet Place is very, like, you can pinpoint its influences to one or two things, you know, that people would agree with.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's kind of what that is there with that.
That's it. I was talking about you, and Tom was saying what he thought you might be thinking. I was like, this is really rude. I'm going to actually find out what you were thinking. But no, that stuff about saying you'd read bad reviews,
I definitely
to
had
me,
before.
that
Yeah.
completely explains it. You
Well,
were
yeah, it
going in
does.
expecting it to be
Yeah,
shit.
it does. You have
Yeah.
pre.
I didn't think I was expecting it to be that bad. I wasn't expecting it to be like. There's been horror films that have come out that I've been mega excited about, like Women in Black. Not many people ever like that, but
Yeah.
I was
Another one,
really, really
your mum
excited about that.
Yeah.
She loved that.
Yeah,
didn't she?
I'm a fan of it as well. I thought it was very, very well made. But a lot of people, I don't. Again, it's expectations is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
You're right. It's an interesting. If it was a world where we all went in to see the same thing with no preconceived notion of it,
I'm all for that.
And then-
that needs to be a thing.
and then if everybody went to see it knowing full well what it was, like somehow enough to know.
Hold that thought, because
you know.
that is literally one of my next points.
Oh, is it? Okay.
where you probably can guess what we're going to get to.
Okay.
That's it. Like, you can crack on.
Thank you to Jessica.
I think that answered the question. That really did.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's crazy. We didn't even consider.
No,
that.
I hadn't thought you might have heard of it. Like, I thought you both, as I said, went in cold.
So another thing I've got written down here is upcoming releases for this month. I just thought, let's talk a bit more about movies. I know it's become a bit of a movie themed chat, but you know, I love
Every conversation
This is
with me
a thing
ends up
where,
looping
like,
into
I think I've
movies,
said
so-
to you before, I'm not often around people where I can have these conversations with.
Right.
So it's quite nice when we get together and we can just sort of
For
say
me,
these
like I
things.
said, every conversation, like a conversation about buying toilet roll for the house, ends up looping into film somehow for me. So it's all within my wheelhouse.
So what you just said then about people's preconceived notions going into films,
Yeah.
I firmly believe that this is an issue that is now this is the type of thing that's made Black Panther become the 4th highest grossing film of all time.
Right.
Have you seen it? Yeah, I know
Yeah.
you have seen it.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, it didn't break. I don't feel it broke any boundaries. I don't think it didn't push the genre at all in the sense that it didn't.
It was, for me, it was just the classic.
Being cast and crewed by black people, for me, it didn't make it.
I mean,
obviously,
that's superb. Like,
yeah, of course.
But to me, that's not an issue I want to talk about. It's
Right.
To me, it's the film that's in front of you. And
Right,
when I
okay.
saw that, it was a little bit like what I got with. So again, this is another Marvel film, Ant-Man, which it's just the classic case of superhero versus bad version of himself.
Yeah.
And they're exactly the same and stuff like that.
I mean,
and
it depends. Like, you know, honestly, Guardians of the Galaxy being the anomaly here, I think they all just follow a very strict formula. Like, I don't think strict's the wrong word to use. I really feel like these films are
Marvel,
made by
Marvel films. You
Marvel
mean?
films. I think they are made by committee, and I think you really can time the beats of the film to, like, you can measure it to any other of these solo films they've made. They really are telegraphed in the same way, and they are plotted and told in the same fashion. So, and for once, I didn't rebel against it with this. I just wanted to just see it for its extra quirks that they throw in. Do you know what I mean? These are all same stories, just with different quirks. And some bits of it were just really good. I agree, but but I mean, Marvel's Marvel to me.
Yeah, I see them all, and I think, back when Iron Man came out, so I've got here, upcoming releases, and it says Rampage with The Rock and Marvel Avengers.
Right.
I think they're the two big films that are coming out in April now. But yeah, so just quickly, just on Marvel, this idea of people have obviously, Iron Man came out, everyone loved it.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, The Incredible Hulk was really bad, but people don't seem to talk about how bad that was.
The first
and that's
one,
kind of been brushed under the rug. Not the Ang Lee one, the one with Ed Norton in.
Ed Norton, the redoing,
so that wasn't great. And then, so they went on, and I think they did like Iron Man 2 might have come next, then Thor, and then everything that led up to Avengers. Now, most of those films were like I said, they took, I think CG and VFX had really started to just become so much,
they
just
pushed
so
the
much,
envelope.
so much better than what it's been for years. So people were seeing these films and being really blown away by effects that they weren't used to seeing. Yeah. And then we got to Avengers, and everybody was in on it. We've seen these solo films, and now they're all teaming up. It was kind of the first time that's ever happened, so that's why everybody was kind of bought into it, and it did so well, and it was good. I enjoyed the first Avengers. I will say, since then, my personal feelings towards Marvel films they have kind of got slightly. I suppose repetitive sounds like a really unintelligent way to describe it.
They're just
like, I really liked Iron Man 3. I really liked what's the Captain America one?
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I liked the Winter Soldier. Since then, I've not really liked. I don't know what it is. They're all very repetitive. Like you say, Guardians of the Galaxy isn't an anomaly. The second one's not as good as the first for me, but. What happens is these films, they come out, everybody's been so excited by Marvel for so long now, and they've done so well. And then when I see something like Black Panther is now the 4th highest grossing film, I'm just like, do you know what? When I think of the Marvel films, for me, that's like, it was not even in the top, I don't know how many they've made, 13 or 15 or something like that. It's not even in the top 10 for me. I was bored, and there's a really great scene in his sister's lab, which I think is the standout scene of the film, which I loved.
Oh, don't get me wrong; these films are all exemplary made. Like, the craftsmanship and the acting is always.
God, yeah.
You can never fault the performances or
It's
anything
not like
in
it's
it.
The Room.
But I just think for the same token that I don't really get excited by them, which is the fact that I know what I'm getting going in every time, and I'm very rarely surprised by a Marvel film. Again, apart from Guardians of the Galaxy, a little bit. That little bit was enough for me. But some people like that, and that's why they have legions of fans that just go for anything they release.
Yeah, and
superheroes they don't even heard of.
You're right to say.
I mean, who's heard of Ant-Man, really?
No, you're right to say. As far as how they're executed, great. I mean, like I say, the CG and stuff like that. It's just you can.
Yeah, the craftsmanship. You won't find any false notes
when
there.
You are getting the same thing, and I didn't really enjoy Ant-Man. Doctor Strange, I thought I didn't enjoy it. Again, it was just boring. But I really liked Thor 3, and that's because they took, but that was different. You didn't really know what you were getting.
How'd you say his name?
Taika Waititi?
Yeah.
Waititi? I'm that butchering his name
Waititi,
there. And that a bit like James Gunn, where they allowed a little bit of sort of leeway. And again, where's this leeway coming from? I don't know. I mean, how much is the director? How much is them getting this committee together to say, let's do this? But James Gunn and Taika Waititi.
Taika, I think it is. Yeah.
I should Google it, but
Waititi,
I can't be bothered. So that's why Thor 3 I really enjoyed. I thought that's the first Marvel film since Winter Soldier. I don't know if Guardians come out after Winter Soldier. Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
I don't know, actually.
They're probably the same year.
So many, it's hard to get the timeline defined. But
Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and then Thor 3.
Yeah.
I really didn't like Civil War. I mean, it was just the same stuff.
I agree with you.
Again.
I mean, whoever has these jobs of putting multiple characters together is going to struggle to put loads of personality in, because they're taking on established characters by other people's films.
Yeah, and this is what brings me to... And I do not want to sit here and just shit on things, because I do my best. Like, I don't do it on Twitter and stuff. If I don't like a film, I generally don't even talk about it. Because,
unless I get asked.
Unless I get asked. But, we're here having a chat, and it's that point you raised about audiences' preconceptions. And so with franchises, this is where I think... there's something that's really frustrating to me going on, because people are flocking to see them and saying how amazing the films are, when I'm thinking, but I really loved those early sort of Marvel films, and I'm bored of them.
Right.
I don't know, what are they really Is this just do people really like them, or do they just think they like them because they think they're going into it knowing, yay, it's Marvel,
every
they cannot do
expectation
no
they
wrong.
have has been met,
and it
they
seems
think we
like
have the same.
Even really sort of trusted reviewers I read, they're sort of they're knocking it out of the park, and I'm just like, are they? Like, I don't. Maybe I'm the idiot and I'm missing something.
No, it's horses for courses. Like we kind of expect the boundary to be pushed here and there, whereas some people don't at all. You know what I mean? Like they have if their expectations have been met, then by the same token they've been suppressed. They're like, they haven't let me down, so oh my god, they've done amazing.
Yeah. But because I know you've obviously been, to me, like you're a whinger about the Marvel films, and I get your issues. These big budgets and stuff like that. They're all to sell toys. But I've always kind of been this. But you can just switch your brain off and go see them. But even when I do that now, I'm like, this is fucking boring. Like, I'm struggling. I am struggling with them, and so
it's all about expectations. Like I had none for Thor Ragnarok either, and I went in there and I'd seen the trailer. I'd seen it was a bit goofy. I thought, all right, this is a goofy film. But genuinely, it got some laughs out of me because I was like, oh my God, like, this is the first film I've seen actors improvising, and they've obviously got a guy with a real comedic sense directing this. And I didn't actually know who did it until I looked back and went, oh my God, I love what they did, what we do in the shadows. I was like,
incredible.
And I wasn't actually surprised because obviously they have this thing of pulling up directors from the indie world. They have this bit of personality and letting them put it in there. James Gunn did that with Guardians.
But this is what I mean.
Branagh did it with the first Thor. That was really Shakespearean if you watch it again, and then you're like,
this was it the first Thor or second? Oh no, it was Taylor that did the second Thor, wasn't it? The Game of Thrones guy. You're right, and but people do seem to be loving them, and
it's all down to who you trust recommend stuff as well.
I've
I don't know if it was you though. I'm suspicious now thinking about this story, but I don't know if it was you that did this. But people were screaming at me when the first one aired. They were like, Tom, they've made a TV show just for you. It is just made for you. I swear to God, it's called American Horror Story. Get on it and watch it right now.
Yeah, that's not me.
Right, it wasn't you. I don't know who it was. And so I was like, oh, God, I literally ran to my TV. I'd seen like some adverts for it and I wasn't too sure. But people, like I must have had honestly about 4 or 5 different people. So I went, jumped in front of my TV. I sat down and I got to the end of episode 2 and I thought, I questioned how I ever were friends with these people. And I questioned about my personality and what I put out in the world. And I thought, oh my God, no one gets me at all. I'm just going to sit there. I was like, oh my God, no one knows me. I can
see why people would have recommended it to you, but I tell you what, I definitely wasn't one of them because I'm not a fan of that show.
Right, fine. So, but I felt so betrayed. And so I that did make me think, right now, I've got to be more selective with the people that I let. Because if people get my heart going, I'm like, oh God, right, I'm going, and I thrive off enthusiasm. So, but when that happened, I was just like, that's more than disappointing. That's disheartening.
Well, there you go. Because a lot of people love American Horror Story.
I know they do.
It's why do they love it?
Well,
is it easy to get? Is it, from what I understand, it's not an easy to get show. It's what's it called? It's an anthology show, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not something that shows usually do. It's not what people are used to. But for some reason, it's been a big success.
Again, and I won't floor the performances and that. But the only critique that I ever land back on is it's a horror anthology made by people who I don't think like horror films. They're not people that grew up on horror films.
Do you know what? I love Nip Tuck though. The guy who makes it, like Nip Tuck so that's the show about the plastic surgeons.
I've heard of it.
It's what he made. It's the guy's Ryan Murphy, I think the guy's name is. Thank you. Turns out I will be eating it in here. I'll eat this away from the microphone.
It's fine.
Ryan Murphy. So I really liked Nip Tuck.
It's interesting. I mean, I could do a whole podcast about him. To be fair, I won't. But
and like I say, I don't want to sit here
controversial guy, and
shit on stuff. Like that's not my intention.
No.
And like you say, performances and stuff. There's so much to love about these things. It's just this audience thing that does really intrigue me, which is why long way to a short point. Upcoming releases. You've got Infinity Wars coming out this month. Now, I have watched the trailers for this. Like I say, I'm trying to cut down on my trailer watching and trying to go into more things with, completely blind. but I've watched the trailers because, again, I think I already know what I'm going to get.
I think you
But
can't not as well.
I watch the
everywhere.
trailers and honestly, I watch it and I'm just like, I don't know how this film cannot be anything but a massive pile of shit.
Wow.
I mean, how can you have so much in this film?
Well, right, so...
When has this ever worked?
Right,
I cannot think of an example where this
The
has
only
ever
thing
worked. They already tried it almost with
Civil
Civil
War,
War,
yeah.
and to me it didn't work. Civil War was
No.
boring. Like,
The thing that I've heard about, the only thing I'll tell you that I've heard about this film, and this is only just from like literally reading the trades and not actively engaging in the publicity of the film, but apparently for this film there is a complete, like they're saying, like, none of you have seen what this film is really about. It's not what you think it is you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, apparently it's not a wall with a bunch of CG lizards in a field.
Good.
It's not about the big purple dude coming to get the stones.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a real plot. They said that will hit you like in the heart and the balls, like, apparently. And so,
Great.
I know, but that's their hook for this, apparently.
that's what I'd be saying if I was trying to promote the film as well.
I mean, whether or not that's true or not,
Yeah.
who knows? That's what I mean. I would say that if that was true or not,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'd be like, I would look at the trailers and be like, there's not an original frame in it, apart from, Captain America's got long hair and,
Yeah.
they've CG Josh Brolin. I mean, like I said, we're not here to bitch about it, but I mean, all I can say is that I passively will not see that film in the cinemas. Like, I don't even really know how I ended up watching Black Panther, to be honest, because I didn't have the intention of seeing it. I think I was just at the cinema and there wasn't actually nothing else on that day. So, but the only films I actually actively go out of my way to go and see are the Guardians of the Galaxy films, just because I like the characters, I like how it's made, and they're the only ones that I actually go for. So, I mean, this will just get a pass from me. It's just not. It's not made for me.
Yeah.
So
I will definitely go to cinema to see it because, again, this is a little bit like, for me, it's like The Walking Dead, which I absolutely have a love-hate relation. But this thing about people hate watching, like, I know it's a terrible thing to do, and I'm completely guilty of it, and unashamedly so. I've watched that show since the start. I'm not going to stop watching it just because it's not doing what I want it to do, because I've invested too much time. I have to see it out through the end.
Yeah.
So I've invested all this time into Marvel. I'll go see Infinity War, and I hope it's fucking amazing.
Well, yeah,
I really
we all
do.
want that. Yeah, we all don't want it to be shit. Like, no, like, if anyone does that, is I think that's really wrong when people do willingly go to see stuff. Like you said, hate watching. I mean, we could go on a sidebar for this for hours about, like, the actual thing of hate watching, because I've got my own ideas about that. There's, like, especially with The Walking Dead, it's like, for me, I just think, well, obviously they're getting some things wrong that people don't agree with or whatever, but there is still something about the way the characters are developing themselves that they still can't walk away from. Yeah. None of them have done anything so untoward their characters enough for people to go, right, that's it, I'm done. Like,
see, for me, I completely get what you're saying, but when I watch The Walking Dead, it's because I'm hoping that it gets back to what I used to love.
Right, so
and I
waiting.
know that's such a sad and pathetic thing. It's like when people say that, music isn't the same as what you used to love and stuff like that. But I mean, but then when you look at the bigger picture about the amount of times that show's changed hands and stuff like that, it's like,
it's had tumultuous.
There is some creative issues going on in that show,
yeah.
and I really hope they can bring it back because there's so much potential for it.
Yeah, I agree.
If it was noticeable that there was an odd little pause there, it's because I stopped to eat my dinner. But we're going to pick this back up. So we're going to stop talking shit about Marvel and all that stuff. That's not very nice. We don't mean it, really. It's just, we're passionate about this stuff.
I don't think they're going to, they're not going to cry about it. Like, spilt milk is definitely the right phrase there.
So... Yeah, we've been going for like an hour and a half now, so we don't want to be going for 5 hours. But I've got another thing that I've written down here on my notes. Something while I was paused just then, you kind of started to talk about, which is, so all these people in the film industry, media industry, film industry, they get to this point where they're directing films for Marvel, they're doing this, that, and the other, but it's a lot of work to do that sort of thing. And you said to me that, you've had people tell you how there's so many directors out there fighting for their chance, and they make a film and they don't make another one. And you've had this idea sold to you that that's because it's so,
competitive.
Yeah, it's so competitive. When actually, really, it's just a case of it's hard fucking work. And so for me, I've been on sort of a weird path over the past 10 years where I thought I might have been sort of slightly leaning towards the film industry. It's what I wanted to do. And I kind of I had very small dips into it, through studios that I worked at.
Yeah.
And then I ended up at a long-term job at an animation studio, and it kind of took me away from it. But the more glimpses I got into it, the more I saw, that there's nothing glamorous about filmmaking.
Oh yeah.
It is a lot of hard work, and unless you've got a passion for something,
I'd say compulsion is a better word, really.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Literally a compulsion.
Yeah, you have to have that, because if you haven't got that, there's no way you're going to make it through the amount of work you have to do,
trials,
which is it's it's extremely long days. It's a lot of.
It doesn't reward you enough. If you look at it objectively, the rewards you get from it, like
especially these days.
Yeah, I mean, financially is just one aspect to it, but the working hours are just not conducive to a good social life, and the accolades are just few and far between. For one thing, it's like you basically need. I think. I mean, I'll let you finish your point, but I'm just saying, like, for there's two things. What it is you have to have an overriding compulsion to do it, as in, like, I can't not. And then any tiny little victory is an amazing one to you, not like, like anything is like any kind of, not validation, but any kind of reward, whatever it may be to you is amazing to you, and not just like, I was expecting an Oscar, like they all have to compound together. That feeds it keeps feeding into this loop of compulsion for you. Otherwise the rewards are just not there to a typical person to what do you get out of it, well,
and it depends what you
got
want.
A film out of it. That's it. A film with my name on it, that's what I got out of it.
And in the case of big time directors, a lot, they get a lot of abuse as well, from the audience and stuff like that. What's it worth at the end of the day? And so we've kind of both been on like moderately similar paths, and you've leaned a lot more towards your filmmaking, and I know that's something you're really sort of still pushing towards. I have kind of got to this place now in my life where I have had enough glimpses of the film industry to realize that I now have no desire to move into the film industry.
Right.
The only way I could see myself making a film would be if it was, it just would so have to be on my terms, and on, which is not the way it works. Like, you can't pull it off that way, because you'll probably end up killing yourself, because it's a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And
some filmmakers do, but they make one every 7 to 10 years.
Well,
and they do that again just because that one project was worth the little bit of compromise, but they still got their way enough. That's why it took so long.
Even on an independent level, there's a lot of, you have to really break your back to get that film together. I know. There's a lot involved in. So I just kind of look at it now, whereas I would love to, and sometimes I watch behind the scenes and I listen to commentaries, and it reignites this fire that I've had inside me. I know has always been there, and I think, man, I would love to be involved in this, but I just think
the months behind
what
it
takes to get there, what it really takes to get there is, I don't think people realise, and obviously there's a lot of young people out there today that consider themselves directors and stuff, and good luck to all of them. But it's a huge industry. It's a lot of work. I mean, like you say, for minimal reward. And I've kind of got to a point in my life where I'm, I've done some work that I've really enjoyed, but I've got goals that I think I know what I'm good at, and I want to have. I'd like to just have a life. My priorities have changed, and I don't know what that is, because I still feel passionate about these things. Yeah. And I'm not a lazy person, I sometimes I find really myself doing, I talk to people about stuff I do, and they're like, oh, that's really impressive. And I'm like, no, it's fucking not. Well, this is nothing compared to what people out there are doing. You know what I mean? And so So I'm now in this position where I've kind of realigned my priorities a little bit in life, and I've taken a slight step away from the media / film industry.
Yep. Somewhat.
Yeah, somewhat.
Only
It's like I
somewhat.
say, it's still there, but it's still very much. It's on my terms and all this.
I mean, in
kind
the
of
grand
thing.
scheme, you're still always creating, though. So you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
and
Whether
I'm
it's on what quote unquote industry scale is, by the by, really.
that, like I said, the non-glamour, that there is no glamour in filmmaking, really. Like, just because you're going to a movie premiere once in a while, like, that's about as glamorous as it gets. But you walk on a building set and it's dirtier than walk on a film set and it's dirtier than most building sites, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And
Twice as stressful.
yeah, and
At least.
with more people telling you you're wrong, because a building site is
There's a plan that everyone
It's
can follow, and the result of it will be exactly what you expected.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a skyscraper, just as we drew. Lovely.
Yeah,
Moving
and
on.
you're making your film and they go, would that imaginary person really want to be doing that? And
Well,
it's
yeah.
like, what the fuck?
Well, or it's just, or like the tide, like for me, it's like the tide has come in 2 more feet than we predicted. Oh, the whole, right, well, the whole day is shot. Let's redo the whole entire aspect of what we're doing,
Yeah, there's a few clouds up there that have decided to blow in front
there
of
you
the
go.
sun.
Hold for an hour,
Yeah.
great. We just burnt through whatever budget for the day. Yeah, exactly. Like, it just doesn't happen
And to
in
me,
any other realm of thingy
that
of industry.
I'm so... I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the way I've found myself in life now, the relationships I have and stuff like that with people. It takes you on this path. And maybe if things were different, my focus might be elsewhere. Yeah. But what is it for you now that keeps you kind of... I know you said compulsion, but what is it for you that thinks, this is worth it to me? And don't take that the wrong way.
No.
I wish I had that compulsion. Like I say, I know that passion and that fire is in me, but I have kind of made this weird peace with that. No, I actually don't want. I'm quite happy.
Yeah.
I will still be happy not doing that. I'm going to be realigning my
You're not
priorities.
suppressing anything.
No, I'm really not. If I wanted to, I'd drop
it.
I'd drop it and I'd go do it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
and you're still living in London, and you're getting you're trying to get this other short film going, and you're still pushing towards what I feel is maybe moving in to that kind of film industry direction.
Directing career,
yeah, and obviously to become a movie director, there is a limited amount of people that do this. It's because you have to be willing to submit yourself to
the odds are crazy, and
all these issues that you have to deal with. So what is it to you that's appealing about that? And I think on the short film level, I could see, okay, you've still got a lot to deal with, but it's manageable to a certain point. But say you make this short film and 6 months down the line, someone says, Tom, this studio wants 10 young directors to pitch on this.
Yeah.
Can you put together, a 30-page outline, a treatment, blah, 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 and present it? And then suddenly you find yourself with, a $20 million pound film, and you got a crew of 500 people, and you're shooting a film.
Yeah.
That could happen, but there's a lot that's going to come with it. So for you...
Yeah.
And I know we kind of spoke about it earlier. I said, what's your intention with this film? And it's like a mix of it's what you like, and it's a kind of logistical career move. But what's so appealing to you to kind of, I guess, continue knowing how much stress and how many issues you have to deal with in this industry? Because we both know it's there.
Sure.
And no director... anytime you hear a director speaking, it's generally the main thing they say is, long days, really stressful. And what is the reward at the end of the day? Is it it paycheck, or is it, is it recognition?
I mean,
is it what is it?
If you chase that, that's the biggest fool's errand ever. If you're actually chasing money, a lucrative living in the film industry like that, that really very rarely is that a motivating factor that works for people, apart from actors. But it's twofold. It's just, first of all, it's like, for me, I never specialized really. I mean, I've had my side career, which is in post-production, really, because that's what I had more experience in. So, I worked in the BBC in post-production, then I worked for Google in post-production. as like an editor and a grader, and I had all these hyphenates against my name because I could not ever, even if and sometimes I've actually really tried. I've I made short little bursts of trying to be just one thing that A, is within the industry, and B, gives me a living and could be a career path, with a good trajectory where I could end up at, with tangible places I could end up being or earning or whatever. And it's just never lasted. It burns out. I just get interested by everything. Like if I spend so much time just editing loads of things, I chronically miss shooting. I miss the outdoors.
Yeah.
I miss act. And then if I just shoot interviews or if I just shoot one type of thing, I miss creative shooting in the sense that I miss actors, I miss scripts. And and then do that too long, I miss editing. I miss like color grading. It just goes on and on for me. It's an endless loop. And also just, I find myself at every stage, if I'm sat, I'm a pretty gregarious person, so I don't like the reason why I could never be a writer is because it's so solitary. Like the idea of doing that year in, year out would be awful. Like writing is torture for me as well, necessary, but torture. But, when I sit and do these big meetings where I'll meet like a makeup artist, for instance, like I was meeting on this film, and we would talk about prosthetics and we would talk about plans we're going to do, and then we then pull out photos and we start talking. Like the feeling you get, this collaboration when you've got, and then you can picture like this person on set with you, and you're going to do this, like your day's going to start looking at the makeup and stuff, and then you're going to go onto set, and then you're going to like hang out with the art director, and she's going to be like, right, I've set up the smoke and the fire to be doing this, and like let me know when you want to cue the smoke, and like it's all this whole collaborative process. Even when I just sit there with my producers and we just talk about films, or we just talk about the script or one aspect of it, you just get this feeling of like there's people doing things, this project, this thing that's unified you, and the collaborative spirit of it basically is what does it for me at any stage. I just love people around. I love people with a unified thing. It carries me along.
Yeah, and that I completely get. And so, but throughout my career, and I'm sure your career so far as well, you will always come up against people that disagree with you, and people that, and whether this is creatively or just logistically or whatever. So for you, when it's making a short film like this, I still imagine you're going to come up against people that might have a slightly different view.
How do you mean?
So, let's take
how to approach something.
Take something really literal like casting.
Right.
So say you're doing some casting. I know you were doing some casting recently for this. Yeah. You might see somebody that you absolutely love.
Yeah.
And then you might have your two producers sat either side of you.
Yeah.
And they might be thinking this person isn't right for the role for whatever reason. And as a director, you've got your vision and you think this is what I want. But I've been around producer directors and I've seen how these relationships work sometimes, and producers will sometimes they will clash with directors. And how can you as a director, how do you deal with somebody who is basically coming to you and going, no, that's not right. For this, because as I say, sort of half jokingly, at the end of the day, this whole thing is like make believe. Everybody's playing pretend and dressing up.
Who knows anything?
Yeah, really, it's how can anyone? So really, people should you think maybe they can just do what they want, and if it fails, it fails. But then when things like money get involved and stuff like that, and you have producers and you have people that are thinking of investors and stuff like that. And what's the point in making this short film? Yeah. And you may not, this project you're working on might be a bad example because you may not have it because it may be less of an issue. But you've obviously worked for the BBC and you've worked at corporate video places and stuff. So I'm sure you've seen these things.
Yeah.
You'll have an opinion. You'll have a thought. You'll a suggestion on something, and someone else will just say no purely for the fact of they have a different idea about it. When really, who's to say who's right or wrong in these situations? Yeah. And for me, that's something I have an issue with, and it's something I know that it is an issue. There's plenty of times when I know I've probably been wrong, but I'll dig my heels in. But then there's times when I know I've been absolutely right from a logistical point of view, and I've had people still tell me I'm wrong just because,
and something suffered because of it, and you maybe had to let it happen.
Yeah. And so those type of situations I really struggle with, and
Right.
which is why I think I would struggle as a director, or as a producer and stuff like this, because when when it's in this sort of creative environment, when someone else is telling you, no, I think it should be better this way, especially when these people don't necessarily come with a good alternative, which you find a lot. I've always had to, I learned very quickly on that if you're going to oppose someone's suggestion, you need to have some sort of to have an A, B, and C option, because if you haven't, you're not going to get anywhere. But still, I've encountered people that will just go, no, and for no reason, and you kind of have to accept it.
Me too.
So, and that's a thing that happens so much in filmmaking and in media industry and all this. So, how do you kind of approach how do you approach them? How do you deal with those things, and how often are you dealing with those things? Because I get the joy in collaboration when you're coming up with ideas and talking people that love movies as well. But sometimes you'll come across a producer they're a producer because they're good with numbers and they're good with this, and that is the case sometimes, especially on a lower level, a smaller part of it. I say lower level. I don't want it to sound like I'm demeaning it.
Just a smaller scale.
Yeah, smaller scale is the stuff you're dealing with, as to where most of the producers at Marvel, a lot of them are very experienced in film and they love filmmaking. But you might come across some producers or somebody in London who are just people looking for work and trying to get whatever they can. Particularly, from my background, I worked a lot in commercials, and you get a lot of people working in the advertising industry where they were just, they were marketing people, they were this, that, and the other. They don't even know what what a film is.
I know. People who don't know the process but feel that they have an inordinate amount of power over it.
There we go. You've just completely summed it up. I knew what I was trying to get towards, and that's something you can come up against a lot in the film industry. So how do you just not in those situations not just go, well, fuck you then, I'm out of this.
I mean, I try to trust my diplomacy skills, which I really feel have been hard earned. I mean, going back to like my first experience, I said the first experience of it was when I first moved to London. I was lucky that one of the first things I got going was a commercial for Solero. I directed. It was my first ever commercial experience, right?
I remember it.
And it was set up just like a typical thing. There was no agency, but it was done on like an indie level. That's why it was like a lower budget thing. And it was, I don't really know the ins and outs, but it's basically Unilever and Solero involved.
Yep.
They approved the script, they approved the treatment that I put together, and we didn't, we set out to shoot that, and we did. We shot the story as it was told to them. And what it hinged on in the end was it was a ballerina doing a dance number, and the whole point of it was it moved from the classical stuffy world to like the free summery vibey world, ice cream, and what it come down to was that they would not pick a music track to help me to edit the whole last third of the video, which was like the grand visuals and the grand explosion of it. And their feedback, and that was so unhelpful. It was people that I was trying to pick this perfect song for it, and they were just sort of telling me to go to these like libraries and things like that to try and find a song. And their feedback was like, less fizzy, more summery, or really generic terms. And I killed myself for a week or two doing re-edits for it, and I really, really did. I was sleeping really little, and I was like, I remember I got some horrible head cold, and I lost my hearing and stuff. Like my sinuses was bloody terrible. And and I learned, what I learned then is it reminded me of something David Fincher once said, which was, you're going to get the entire blame. So make all the decisions, and if you need to stick by them and like defend them with a sword, you do them if you're going to. And my thing was, I knew one of the tracks I picked was the best thing for it. Yeah. They said no, keep going. We did 3 or 4 iterations, and they basically just sort of dropped the film in the end. And I just sort of learned then. I was like, I bet someone somewhere saw maybe that second edit and thought that was fine, and then one other person who might have been a little bit more senior sort of thought they had a different, wanted to be a contrarian, and go, no, let's keep going, I think it's a bit too drummy, just something very arbitrary, and it kept the process going. And then when I moved into the BBC, it was the same thing. You get really bullheaded producers who would not trust in the collaborators that they had hired to make something better, especially in the factual documentary sense. They are still trying to tell a story, and they're trying to, make a cohesive thing. And if the idea hadn't come from a place of a respected place within the hierarchy, it was thrown out immediately. And then it's just, you would see that it was to their detriment always. And then further again with Google, massive corporation, so many people involved, feedbacks from left and right. And, these editors, like including myself and obviously the people who actually really edited the stuff, I was only a junior there. The feedback that was so contradictory and all this, like it just it just doesn't really change. The process doesn't change, but what you do gain in that as a secondary thing of it, thank God, is you learn these amazing skills of diplomacy, where you learn how to make people feel like they've been heard, and that they're like obviously the old fashioned thing of the old technique of making their idea, your ideas seem like theirs, and your idea and their ideas yours, and you loop around, and then everyone's happy. But then also, or just feel like they've been heard, and you can give solid reasons why you disagree, and you just got to come with the ammo, really. And I think like if you do enough, if you're diplomatic enough, and you learn the collaborative process, you have enough experience to navigate these waters with it. So I mean. And also, I trust people that have more experience than me as well. Like it's an old joke that normally on films, for real, the director is the most least experienced person in terms of hours on a set working on films on the whole film. That's normally the truth.
You've got so-and-so who builds the sets that's been doing it since they were 17, and now they're now 65.
Think about gaffers. Like like a gaffer on a Chris Nolan film, let's say maybe, he might do like 8 a year, whereas Chris Nolan make one film every 4 years. The ratio alone. And so you're not gonna dictate to that guy about how to rig, because he's seen everything and done everything. And so if he comes to you and says that's not feasible, you will, there's nothing wrong. They respect it if you push back and say why. You don't just have to take them on their blind word. You say why, and they'll explain it to you. And this is probably a bad example because their job is very safety orientated and stuff. But if it's creative thingy, you give them some pushback, and if they're a real artist and they're a professional at what they do, they will not have a problem explaining to you, and they won't get short with you and say because I know, because I'm so and so and I know. And it's the same way the other way. You don't turn around and go because I'm the director. You have to you do have to justify the decisions you make and why, like not in the sense that you have to go out and sometimes you do have to go out and bat for the choices you make for casting and things like that, but if it's a creative choice that people don't get, then that's a flaw in the way you've delivered it, so you just have to come at it a different way and get people on track. I mean, it doesn't bother me, it really doesn't. Like I don't mind repeating myself and reworking a place to articulate it better to them. So I don't know, like I've experienced it in my professional career of like, feedback being a drag and having to collaborate with people who don't get the process, and really you realize you're talking to someone who on the surface of it shouldn't really have the authority to override things like this for people who really do know. But that's just the world we live in. But you just learn how to work within those parameters of who you are, who they are, what they're, what the whole thing is. So you learn what to really go out to bat for, and kill yourself for, and what not to, what to let slide. Pick your battles. That's a long way to say, but pick your battles.
No, that's it. I completely agree. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. And, when I've been there as well, again, like you say, dealing with people who you think, hey, how the hell are they in this position? How have they got there? And I think it's more so in this sort of corporate and commercial environment, that this kind of stuff happens. And you said a minute ago about how, if one of these ideas doesn't come from somebody up in the hierarchy, then it doesn't get listened to or stuff. It's how things like that Pepsi advert happens, and it's just like it's because everybody's around them and they're just there trumped and and they're all nobody's saying no, and then it comes down to the person at the top who just says yes, and it just gets pushed through. It's a horrible industry, part of the industry to work in. But then when it comes to filmmaking, and obviously I'd say a lot more creativity involved. To me, I'm not necessarily like, I have ideas. I don't really get precious about them. I don't talk to many people about my ideas, which is why, in a weird way, if I ever saw myself going back into the film industry, it probably would be in like a screenwriter's role, because I know that then I've got less to deal with later. You know, I think I would be quite happy, and I've never considered myself a writer really. I've written short scripts and stuff, and that's it. But growing up, I used to think, oh yeah, working on a film set, that stuff you were saying, like talking to the makeup and how you get these special effects done, like I would love all that. But now, because I know I know the amount of work that's involved, I'm just like, oh, I can't really be bothered, to be honest. Like, you know, whereas now I think I probably would get a lot more reward out of if I wrote a script that then got picked up and was just made by, you know, so and so and so and so, and they do whatever they want with it. Great, you know, that's fine. I'd be perfectly happy with that. And I know when it comes to writing, you can write with other people, and sometimes you're brought in to write on a script that's already been rewritten 5 times and stuff like this. And I think I've just suddenly, I think I've got to a point where I am quite happy to think that I'm happy to work quite solitary for the rest of my career, you know, on these paths that I see myself going now, and the choices that I'm making. And it's weird because I never thought I'd get to that kind of position, because I used to love making films with my friends when I was a kid and stuff like that. And to just, I suppose, long way to the short point. It's just that stuff that I see you having to deal with now, even on this smaller scale. I'm just like, I don't really know, and I have to do it a bit. You know, I've got a shoot coming up, and sometimes I feel like, you know, I'm working on autopilot a little bit, like I am just in my kind of diplomatic mode, like you say, whereas really there's a part of me that's just like, I wish everyone else would kind of just go away. I'm so confident in myself that I can pull this off. But that's not how the industry works, and you're not really left to your own devices to do that, which is why I probably won't be in that kind of practical filmmaking world.
It's just, it's there for everyone, man. Like, you know, I imagine only Spielberg would be a person who would say, you know, I want the sun to rise over there, and someone will make it happen. Everybody else will be like, really? Over there? You know, like, no matter who you are. I heard even, like, you know, Guillermo del Toro, Shape of Water, people were like, a fish man? You know, and then... Or even like, you know, Sally Hawkins, you know, and then, you know, everybody, like, they'll always get like the naysayers, who just the people who prod them, like no matter how much credit you've earned yourself within the industry, will still have this. You still have to always basically defend your ideas. And if that becomes hard, then maybe you can question your, I say devotion, but your drive. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, it's no problem when people say to me, they say, why when you had no real resources at your fingertips, why would you set a film during the Black Death? And I'll say, because I could not. I said, because the film wrote itself that way. I mean, now again, a bit wanky to say, but like, I'm just saying that's how the script ended up. That's what I wanted to make, so I'm going to make that. It's like, you know, I'm not gonna, if I'd met my 2 producers and they turned around and said, we love it, we love all of it, but let's set it on a beach in Essex in like 2010. You know, I wouldn't for a second. I'd have been like, well, no, that's literally not the film. And they would never have done that. But I'm just saying, like, that is something that I imagine someone might have said if I'd got the wrong producers. It did take me a few tries to get the right guys. You know, you just say no. Like, you know, like, making that is not worth it to me, because I'll hate it. You know, you'll be forcing yourself to do something. Again, you'll be forcing yourself to do an inordinate amount of work for no reward there, because it's not something you wanted to do. And I just would never do that. So
what if you were Christopher Nolan and you were making a World War II film, and it was this sort of story in World War II that no one really knew that much about, and, you know, even though you'd made all this billions of dollars for your movie studio, you know, you wanted to make this film, and then the movie studio, you had the script and everything all good to go, and the movie studio said, but we really, really need you to put a teen pop star in this film.
Right, so we're going there with that.
Because you're not going to get the audience
We're going
in.
there, okay.
And it's just like, okay, so you put yourself in those shoes and you think, are you just at a point in your career where you think, oh, who cares? Like, you know, he hasn't got to work another day in his life if he doesn't want to. So it's not financial at this point. It's got nothing to do with money with Christopher Nolan. I'm sure he could retire tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I mean, but
and so when you're in that position, you've got this beautiful film that you've written, and you know you think you can pull off, but they say, but we really need to bring in this demographic. Yeah, how about we cast this guy? Yeah, but where do you draw the line between that? You know,
well, I mean, I can only extrapolate from how I feel about making films and what I imagine Mr. Nolan to be. Obviously not you know, I don't know him obviously, but I think he would have agreed with the idea. That's why it's in there, because at his level, basically, I would not think that he actually would have had anything put on him. They'd have suggested it, and he'd have been, yeah, that's probably a smart idea. Let's get him in, and I'm going to put him through the ringer. And if he hadn't performed, then he wouldn't. I don't think he would have done it, because I don't think someone like that. Obviously, don't think, like, you know, the work is always the work. So I imagine this was a tough project, a lot of work, and I don't think he would have easily compromised it for that kind of reason. I don't think he would have risked people, like, a big false note in it for the sake of the marketing thing like that. So I imagine if he hadn't been 100% comfortable with it, just like with every other aspect of that film, because that's how he makes his films. He's one of those, like, you know, fingers in everything. Yeah. I don't think it would have happened. So I think, I just think, like, the only thing, you know, I trust when he says that, you know, that he was suitable for the film, you know, the perfect person for it. Well, I don't think he's actually ever said that, but you know what I mean? That sort of.
Well, I know I read the cast and director said that they auditioned 1,000 people and he was the best. Right. When I read things like that, I'm a bit put out. But I mean, again,
it's hard to believe, but the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. Do you know what I mean? It's like they auditioned a lot of people. Yeah. Someone then said, well, why not a face? Yeah. Or, you know, this kid wants to do it. He would have said, right, we'll get him in. Let me have a look. And I bet he looked, and then he called him back in, did it again, sent him away, called him back in, did it again. Yeah. I don't imagine it was easy. Yeah. I mean, I bet if we had him here, you know, he would probably tell you it wasn't easy for him to get in that way. I don't think he just said, I want to get in on that, and they'd be like, yeah, you're in, you know, well done, Harry, you know.
I hope not.
No, I hope not as well, but I don't imagine, I cannot, from everything I know about Chris Nolan, I can't imagine that being possible.
No, I agree.
I mean, for me, again, you know, there are compromises you want to make. You know, I cannot imagine any film of that scale. So if one of your
producers said to you, Tom, this person from The Only Way Is Essex is like, they're begging to get into the film industry. They just need that break. Like, you know, I've known them for 10 years. Like, can we just audition them? And it comes to audition, and they're moderately okay. Right. You know, what do you do in that situation?
If it's, well, you mean in my film now?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, my film is a two-hander. So if it was like, so basically you're telling me I need to put one of the leads as like, this guy's never acted before, other than reality, I'd probably say, well, no. I mean, unless I'm still open to the possibility that you could put him in, sit him in a room, give him the script, and my God, they just access something. And you're like, oh my God. And then you would get excited. You'd be like, right, I'm gonna jump off your publicity for what people know of you, and I'm gonna show them something they've not seen. Because they'll be like, oh right, let's all sit down and watch him flub himself. And then he actually delivers amazingly, and you're just like, oh my God, holy shit. So I'm open to that.
But then loads of people don't watch your film because they know
because if that's in it. Yeah. Or I mean, that's fine. Like, it's not fine, but I mean,
it's fine. It doesn't.
Fine, but it would be a fun barrier to break down. To be like, you know, well, you know, come have a look. Yeah. You know.
No, I'm not for or against it. I just like, you know, imagining these situations. And
I mean, you know, that's just extremes of it, though. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if someone said, you know, if someone's in a smaller way. I mean, if I was to approximate that down, if someone was to say, we can guarantee you would like triple your budget if you make, you know. If you make one of the secondary characters so-and-so's girlfriend from Thingy, she's got 2 lines, I'd be like, all right, I'll make it work. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
That's like when people say, you know, would you you know, say you've started to make your career as a director like really well, and then suddenly McDonald's come along and say, "Oh, Tom Cheetah, we saw your short film. Here's £30 million. Will you direct on new commercial?" You'd be like, "Yes."
There are some. I mean, I wouldn't cross. Like,
come on.
I
I'm as anti as McDonald's as it gets, but listen. This is where you kind of come into this conversation between art and real life. It's like
saying, though, if someone come to me and said, here's $15 million plus 10% of gross if you direct Fast and the Furious 10, I would be like, I couldn't, even for that money, I couldn't fake it, because I would do a bad job.
Yeah.
Everyone would hate me, and I may not work again, because I don't see, even for that amount of money, how you could fake it for 2 years enough to the level where you turn in a competent film.
Yeah.
So I would have to say no. That's how a lot of people don't believe that when they say that. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people, I've had jokes about like actors I really don't like, and people have said, well, you would put him in a film for so and so money if you were paid, wouldn't you? I'd be like, I don't think so, because I couldn't fake for that amount of money, or like for any amount of money really, to be like, that I love you and I can work with you on that level where we both do good work, because you have to really be invested in it. And if you're not, if you're one toe out, it shows. It always shows in films, I believe. I mean, some people can fake it, I guess, but I couldn't. So,
well, this is why I couldn't go back to work in commercials, because well, because it got, some of the jobs I worked on, they were, really fulfilling, and despite at the end of the day they were selling a product, it didn't matter, because there was some artistic integrity and you felt good about it. But when like a script for like a cold sore cream would come on to my desk, I'd just be like,
unless you get that amazing lightning bolt idea and be like, again, this is how like beer commercials started. They're like, right, we're selling a drink that people get in a pub.
Yeah, but beer commercials, I mean, that's
they haven't always been like Guinness ads, though. Some of them used to be just, dude in a pub turns to the sun, takes a sip, and that was all you needed. And then like, the two arrows in the barrel, strongbow. It wasn't until someone went, you don't need, like, we all know what someone drinking a beer looks like. We don't need to show that anymore.
Yeah.
So for a cold sore cream, you could be like, I have a hilarious idea. Absolutely nothing to do with cold sore.
But then what they do,
that's what viral ad
but
is,
then this is what they do. Viral, pun intended.
Well, yeah, there you go.
But then this is what you do. You have a chat with them and they go, so what we want to do is really amplify the scientific evidence that this stuff really works. And there's no room for creative stuff.
Right,
and it's
I see.
Yeah, that stuff, what's that? That commercial is going to pay, your production company 30 grand.
Yeah.
But if it was my production company, I guess if I was struggling, I'd say no, because I wouldn't be able to fake it for that sort of thing.
There's other ways you can always twist it, right? So taking that, for example, one way I would think about it for me is I'd be like, right, so it's going to be a data sort of commercial. I would be like, right, well, I want to, like, let's try out a new type of animation software or technique that gets that point across, but we haven't used before. So we'll just use it as like a fact-finding thing on someone else's dime.
R&D. Yeah.
And we'll say, that's how a lot of directors do their commercials. They're like, I want to try out a type of jib I've never used before.
Yeah.
Or a type of camera system.
Yeah, this is true.
You just scale down until you find one thing that you would get enough out of.
Yeah.
So like, I guess I'll tell you what that is. I guess that's the price of your soul.
Yeah. Wow.
You find what the price. It's like, right, well, it's using this technique I've not used before, or using these lenses even.
That's a good point.
And some people can. But I mean, if you're peddling like, obesity to people, then the price of your soul has got to be bigger. You'd be like, they'd have to be like, all right, well, you're gonna work with Robert De Niro. We'd be like, oh God, that's so. And then they'd be like, and you can hire like Emmanuel Lubezki to shoot it.
But things do come along that you just think, no matter how much money's attached, I couldn't do this.
Yeah, there is a limit. There always is. But like, with the Solero commercial, for me, it was like, I hadn't shot anything for a little while, and I was like, I'm actually going to be able to hire a pretty decent crew for this. I'm going to shoot it pretty well. Like there was enough from it I could get that wasn't a compromise, in the sense that I mean, I also found it funny that the first thing I did after making a horrendous drug drama about people whose limbs were falling off was an ice cream commercial.
Yeah.
So I thought that'd be funny to tell people about after, to put it on my reel or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's why I did that.
Yeah.
So, it's measured compromise all the time, all the way through. And at the moment, for me, I'm happy to do it.
No, that's fair. That's completely fair enough. And towards the latter stages of my last job, we were doing a lot more digital content, and we worked with people at Marvel. We worked with people in their entertainment department,
massive.
And they were amazing. I'd worked with advertising agencies for years, and they were just. It was just hot. It was just so painful to work with those places, and then you work with somebody who is kind of on the same, they're in the same frame of mind as you, and they get it. They're
they know
absolutely
their stuff,
like, why didn't we think of that and stuff. That stuff I absolutely loved, and that was really, really good. But at the end of the day, that was there's still parts about the process that I haven't found my way kind of through to really enjoy yet, and which is why I think creatively I think with me it's probably going to be more down to being
an aspect that you can control almost entirely.
Which sounds horrendous, but then again, I watch some people that are really inspirational to me. I watch them talk about it, and the first to admit they're absolute control freaks and perfectionists.
No, it's nothing to avoid.
It's just like, I'm a bit like that, and maybe that's something I could see myself sticking to and being happy with, and whereas before I thought being involved in this big collaborative process
in everything
it's something I really wanted to do, but now I'm just like
it's like that's why I never could specialize, because I just never felt the need to have this one thing I controlled too much. I mean, maybe because I'd never felt skilled enough in any one thing to actually command that, to be like, I will do the grading, you know what I mean? Like, and that is all I will do, because I know I can do anything around it. But I know I always just thought, well, I do enjoy doing it a lot. I really do. I dabble. I'm like, I don't know what you would call it, but one level above dabbling. But
fiddling,
well, no, I do
meddling.
it. I have done it to a professional standard, so it's like, but other graders would look at it and be like, oh my god, whatever. But then when I when I go to professional grading sessions and see the leap between me and them, and knowing what it would take to get to that stage, I'm not willing to do it, because I don't.
You have to drop everything else.
Yeah, the interest would not sustain me enough to get to that level. So I'm like, I won't even attempt it. I said it's because that's how you waste years. So I'm just happy with like the little bits I do. I'm interested in enough that can pay me and feed me. So like I still make a living off my creativity and like my technical skills related to the industry. But I know that I cannot focus my life down on any one of those things. I just have to keep doing them until I get to the chance to make something that uses all those skills together, which is directing, and then do it again. And hopefully the distance between them will get shorter. That's literally the only thing I hope for this project, is the distance between this and the next time I get to do another one is shorter. But obviously I want this film to be everything it can be as well. But I'm just saying, if I had to think of an overarching goal, it's that the distance between them is shorter. That's it.
Makes sense to me.
That's not asking too much.
I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Best of luck with your film, Mr.
Thank
Cheetah.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're going to keep me involved and keep me posted along the way.
Oh yeah.
Next time you're down, we'll probably do this again. We'll talk about something else. This has obviously been very film orientated. Maybe we can talk about Brexit, like you said.
Yeah. Special 6.5 hour episode. Actually, no, because we would just sit there and agree with each other. It's done. We need to get one of our dads on.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
Oh my god. Polemic to end all polemic. Oh my god. Oh my god.
But thanks for taking time to do this. Obviously, this is one of my first ones on my own as well, so it's been a nice sort of fun learning experience for me as well.
Love it.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.